call the meeting to order for Wicomico County Council Legislative Session 2024-23 for October 15th, 2024. Those that like to stand and join us in the Lord's Prayer and Pledge of Allegiance, please do.
Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Entertain a motion from council to approve the consent agenda. Second?
Second.
Any discussion or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Consent agenda passes unanimously. This time we have a proclamation to recognize the month of October as National Domestic Awareness and Prevention Month. Karen Hughes is a representative from Life Crisis Center. She is here today, as well as Councilman Vice President Jeff Merritt will read the proclamation. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? Thank you for coming. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. This is a proclamation for National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas domestic violence is a pattern of abusive behavior used to gain and maintain control over another, which can occur in the form of physical, verbal, or emotional abuse. Domestic violence affects millions across the United States, regardless of cultural background, ethnicity, sexual orientation, faith, socioeconomic status, or educational background. And whereas domestic violence is never the fault of victims and survivors, and the vast majority of cases go unreported, which leaves victims suffering silently in places where others consider the safest, their home, work, or school. And whereas we all have the ability to empower victims and survivors by offering resources, listening without judgment, and reminding them that they are not alone. Education and awareness are also critical components in the effort to end domestic violence. Now, therefore, the Wicomico County Council hereby proclaims October as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Wicomico County and encourages all citizens to join the movement to end domestic violence by educating themselves, speaking up, and by offering support to victims and survivors. Done this 15th day of October 2024, signed by all members of the Wicomico County Council. And please say a few words, and then we'll take a picture.
Thank you, and thank you for recognizing domestic violence. When I say the word abuse, what do you think of? It's usually not domestic violence. It's usually child abuse, maybe sexual assault, maybe rape, but not domestic violence. And yet, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men will be a victim at some point in their lives. So just this room alone, I've been counting how many people are in this room. 3 men and 3 women at some point in our lives, if we represented the community, that's how much of an impact happens in our community. You know people. They may not tell you, they may not talk about it, and yet you know people. In September, there is a national day, it's a National DV Count Day, where every agency that works with domestic violence counts how many people they impact on that one day. Our agency did 95 people. One day. That is the work that we do. That is the impact that we can have. That's the lives that we touch and hopefully help to get them so they become from a victim to a survivor. And I thank you for recognizing that. We do need to educate people. We do need to remind ourselves that this is something that is in our communities, and we can help one person at a time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Again. Mr. Benson.
Morning, Mr. President, County Council members. We're here for Bill number 2024-08. It's an act to amend Chapter 163 of the Wicomico County Code titled Invasive Bamboo Control Act to establish regulations on controlling invasive bamboo. This act would prohibit the sale of invasive bamboo, which is defined in the definition section, and to prohibit the planting of invasive bamboo. The other provision in this is for an awareness program to be established with regard to the problems associated with invasive bamboo. This legislation does not contain any punishment or active manners in which the punishment would be established. At this point, the legislation simply is establishing basically an educational program for the benefit of the county. This legislation was drafted by it was drafted by one of the members of the county council.
Councilman Hastings.
Councilor Hastings. Councilor Hastings is not here today. My understanding is we're here today to just simply do a public hearing, and that the council will not be voting on this until Mr. Hastings is in attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. At this time, we open the floor for public hearing on legislative bill 2024-08. If you have any comments that you'd like to make in reference to this specific bill, come to the podium, please. State your name, your county of residence, and your concerns. Okay, that concludes the public hearing on legislative bill 2024-08. Mrs. Hurley, am I right in saying that at the next council meeting is when there will be the formal introduction of the legislative bill?
Well, the bill has already been introduced, so council will actually consider voting on the bill at the next meeting.
Good. That's why I'm glad you're here. Thanks.
So next on the agenda is the submission of appointments to the Wicomico County Commission on Aging and the Wicomico County Commission for Women by Mr. Bunky Luffman, our Director of Administration.
Morning, Mr. Luffman.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Let me get my papers here. I believe first we're doing the Commission on Aging. Their purpose is to help aging and older adults in Wicomico County with health, social, economic, environmental challenges, and advocate for older residents and provide assistance in resolving problems that can impact their quality of life. And just editorially, since now I'm over a half century old, I really appreciate this this board and this body a lot. And so,
Thank you, Mr. Luffman. Ms. Hurley?
So resolution number 138-2024 is confirming the appointment of Sharon Jones as a member of the Wicomico County Commission on Aging.
Entertain a motion from council to approve resolution 138, 2024. Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution passes.
Mr. Luffman, did you want to mention anything about the Commission on Women?
yep. So the purpose of the Commission on Women, it's a nonpartisan organization dedicated to enriching the lives of women and families by focusing on issues of importance and concern to them, including education, economic opportunities, health care, social issues, and legislation.
Before you is resolution number 139-2024. This is confirming the appointment of Ashley Laughlin as a member of the Wicomico County Commission for Women.
Entertain a motion from council to approve resolution 139, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes unanimously.
Next is the submission of Stephanie King as Director of the Local Management Board.
So the LMB Local Management Board promotes a safe, healthy, and stable environment for Wicomico County children and families. Ms. King was one of, I believe it was 7 applicants that we interviewed, and we unanimously decided on her. The interviewing board was myself, Matt Leitzel, who's my assistant director, Donna O'Hara from our HR department, and also Mr. Gilbert from the State's Attorney's Office, who also serves on the board of the LMB.
Thank you for your submission, Mr. Luffman. Mr. Benson.
We're here for legislative bill number 2024-09. It's an act to amend Chapter 90 of the Wicomico County Code titled Tax Exemptions to add a new Section 90-2 titled Airplane Landing Strips Tax Exemption to exempt from county real property taxation the essential portions of improved airplane landing strips as certified by the Maryland Aviation Administration. This was specifically raised at a prior meeting on behalf of Bennett Airport, which is located on Naylor Mill Road. And this recognizes that private landing strips are a benefit to the county and to the state, and this would enable property that has a private landing strip to tax exemption. And Mr. Illuminati is here on behalf of the county attorney's office.
Entertain a motion to approve the introduction of legislative bill 2024-09.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
By Mr. Illuminati. Good
Morning. So this, as Mr. Benson said, is an exemption that's allowed by state law when an entity meets 4 requirements. It's located on privately owned land, used by the public, licensed under the transportation article. But most importantly, it's identified in the Maryland Aviation System Plan as essential to the state's air transportation system. The process to determine which portions of the land are exempt is all set by state law, but the county needs to allow for this exemption if it's going to allow Bennett Airport to take advantage of it. So, any questions?
Any questions from Mr. Illuminati?
You said a portion of the property? Correct.
The essential portions of the airplane landing strip. That way, somebody has 1,000 acres, but only
Right.
little areas used, only that area that's used
Okay.
would receive the
So it won't be
benefit.
the whole.
Correct.
And the whole, Pamela Lynn, Finance Director, sorry, but the whole property is only taxed at $1,150. So it would be less than that would be the exemption that we're looking at. So it's not a significant amount of money to the county tax coffers, but it does allow this airfield to apply for state grants to help maintain its infrastructure.
Questions?
Do you know if a lot of the crop dusters use this airport? They're pretty important to our farming friends.
I know he has a set clientele. I do not know his clientele. I do know that this is the only airport that meets all of the requirements of the state within Wicomico County, besides the airport that we own.
Right.
So this would be the only one that would qualify under the current regulations and the current list by the state of Maryland that would meet the definition, meet the language. The language that is being proposed is exactly what the state has recommended it be. The only thing that has been added would allow him to apply this year versus, so that he wouldn't have to wait another year for the grant application.
Mr. Marriott, I can answer that question. That's what they do there. A big part of what they do. Unfortunately, there's one less plane that's using the airport because we had a crash last week, so down on the east side of the county. It's an important part of our infrastructure in the county for them to have, because planes that they could use Salisbury Wicomico Airport, but they'd have to work in the schedule, so they don't have the schedule to have to deal with when they use a small airport like that. So,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All those in favor of the introduction of legislative bill 2024-09, say aye.
aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Introduction passes unanimously.
I believe, in discussing with Mrs. Hurley, the public hearing and second reading are going to be in the first meeting in November.
Yes.
Given the timeline for the 60 days and the requirement for the state application for this fiscal year.
Yes.
All right? Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Hurley?
The next item is
Oh, sorry,
legislative
Mr.
bill
Benson.
2024-10. It's an act to amend Chapter 90 of the Wicomico County Code titled Tax Exemptions by repealing in its entirety Section 90-7 titled Hotel or Multifamily Residential Development Property Tax Credit. This is better known as the Horizon Tax Credit. At the last meeting, the members of the council indicated a interest in addressing this exemption The exemption was adopted, I believe, in 2021. It had, in that, when it was adopted, there was a 3-year period established for the council to review it. And the council in this situation is in the process of following through with that 3-year review. If this is adopted, it would eliminate the exemption. And Mr. Illuminati is here for the county attorney's office.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. Entertain a motion from council to approve the introduction of legislative bill number 2024-10. Second.
Second.
Motion is second. As a matter of discussion, this is for the public to understand, this is an introduction of the legislative bill. There will be a public hearing process after this, probably most likely the next meeting,
November 5th.
at which point in time the council could take a vote on this legislative bill at that time or 2 weeks following that or within the 60-day period. So just for reference to the public. Any questions for Mr. Illuminati? Any comments from you, Mr. Illuminati? Okay. All those in favor of the introduction of legislative bill 2024-10, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Introduction passes unanimously.
Next item, Mr. President, is Legislative Bill 2024-11. It's an act to amend Chapter 37 of the Wicomico County Code titled Ethics Law, Article 1 titled In General, Section 37-2 titled Definitions, Article 2 titled Ethics Commission, Section 37-5 titled Ethics Commission, Article 3 titled Prohibited Conduct and Interest, Section 37-6 titled Applicability, Section 37-11 titled Use of Prestige of Office, 37-12 titled Solicitation and Acceptance of Gifts, Section 37-17 titled Candidates to be elected officials, Section 37-18 titled Public Records, Section 37-20 titled Contents of Statements, Section 37-21 titled Interests of Individuals, Article 5 titled Employees and Appointed Officials Disclosure Statements, Section 37-23 titled Applicability, Article 7 titled Lobbying, Section 37-26 titled Lobbying Registration Statement, include changes that comply with the requirements of the current code of the state of Maryland. The state of Maryland mandates that there be an ethics law in each county. This is the Wicomico County has an ethics law set out in Chapter 37 of the Wicomico County Code. Periodically, the state legislature makes changes to the recommended language, and the purpose of this is simply to conform the county's ethics code to the recommendations or requirements of the state law. Mr. Illuminati is here from the county attorney's office.
Entertain a motion from council to introduce legislative bill number 2024-11.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion or questions? This is, I guess, a similar housekeeping measure we've done before where we try to make sure that the county is in line with the state statutes. I understand that. My concern, because when I read legal sometime, my eyes glaze over. That's why we get people like you and Mr. Benson and Mr. Wilbur here. I just want to make sure that legally that we don't, in moving forward with this, that we aren't creating any type of unintended consequences or compromises to the current system and the current individuals in office. Anything extreme changing, or is it just a matter of housekeeping?
Well, it may be both. In the context that the state did increase the requirements regarding percentage held in a business to require disclosure when, during the applicable period, a business entity in which the individual held 10% or greater interest disclosed when it's a 25% or greater interest or 50% greater interest. And under the previous law, it was a 30% or greater interest. So now the state's requiring disclosure at basically more than 10%. You have to enumerate what it is. So that is a substantial change from the previous law. However, it does add, allow for the Ethics Commission can still do its job and make other considerations depending on the disclosure. Individuals can still proactively seek guidance from the Ethics Commission, but the changes that are being made are being mandated by the state law. So we are in accordance. The Ethics Commission reviewed it, approved it. The State Ethics Commission reviewed it and approved it. So to the extent that there's been a change which may have an adverse impact, there'll be something to the Ethics Commission to view everything under a request for decision.
Yeah, I think probably every member of the council up here has referred to the Ethics Commission at one point in time in the past to make sure that there was not any conflict as part of what we were doing currently and what was being mandated by law. So that's important. Any other questions for anyone here? Okay, let me get back to where I was. All those in favor of the introduction of legislative bill 2024-11, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Introduction passes unanimously.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Illuminati. At this time, we entertain a motion to adjourn from legislative session to convene as a local Board of Health.
So move.
Second? Need a second?
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Now convening as the local Board of Health. We have Mr. Matthew McConaughey here. Joel, get ready. Us a favor and just introduce yourselves from left to right for the public. Thank you.
Your left or my left?
Take your pick. We're going to give you an option.
Yeah. Matthew McConaughey, Wicomico County Health Officer.
Christina Gray, Director of Planning and Assessment for the Health Department.
Good to have you both here today.
Thank you so much for having us here. We're happy to present on the Health Department and provide you updates with our strategic plan and our annual report, as well as some other current facts that have recently came up in the county. Our agenda for today will cover our strategic plan and annual report highlights, and then we'll move on to other updates. This is just a reminder to the community, to y'all, about the mission of the Wicomico County Health Department to maximize the health and wellness of all members of the community through collaborative efforts, with a vision of healthy people in healthy communities. We do this by setting our guiding principles of promoting and protecting health, health equality, collaboration, customer focus, and making a difference in the community. And I believe as we go through this presentation, you will see the true difference that we make every day in the lives of every individual within Wicomico County. With that, I will turn this over to Christina to provide the updates from our strategic plan and some annual updates.
So good morning. The current Wicomico County Health Department strategic plan sets forth what we plan to achieve, how we will know what's been achieved. And this plan was developed through a process through the National Association of City and County Health Officials, or NACHO, not NACHO, but as well as the standards and measures from the Public Health Accreditation Board, or FAB. And so we have completed our first full year of the 5-year cycle, and our current plan has 4 major strategic priority areas, and those include health improvement, communication, workforce, and technology. And so each year, the Health Department publishes an annual report that provides updates on these strategies and programmatic activities under each of these priority areas. Today's presentation provides a brief highlight from this report, but we do encourage you to fully review this on our website at your earliest convenience. For those, it is www.wicomicohealth.org under the Planning and Assessments tab. And so walking you through kind of these strategic priority areas, the first area is health improvement. This work is addressed through our Community Health Improvement Plan, or CHIP. And every 3 years, the Health Department, in addition to Somerset County Health Department and Tidal Health, do a comprehensive data dive, right, into all of the health outcomes that may be changing and priorities for the county. And so this includes secondary data, which was a lot of what we went over in the May Board of Health meeting, but we also do primary data collection through focus groups and key informant interviews. And so we have actually just started the next 3-year cycle for this data and planning process. And so we will, over the next few months, probably encourage your constituents to fill out our upcoming resident survey, as well as participate in some of these focus groups. So more information to come on that, but it is coming. Our current plan, again, will end through this fiscal year and includes 3 areas: access and health equity, behavioral health, chronic disease, and wellness. And each of these areas does now have a dedicated subcommittee to perform work with our Wicomico County Local Health Improvement Coalition, or LHIC. So when you look at the kind of key indicators or some data for access and health equity, the major strategies here are just increasing access to health care overall, increasing health literacy, as well as addressing the social determinants of health. We won't focus on all of these data points explicitly, but a few key indicators under this umbrella as we walk through health improvement. So when we look at the percentage of those uninsured and those individuals in poverty in the county, we haven't seen much change. However, we have seen a pretty sizable increase in the median household income in Wicomico County, as well as an increase in the percentage of high school graduates. And so to complement these key indicators, well, what is the health department? What have we done in the past fiscal year? We worked to address health access and health equity by launching a new subcommittee for the LHIC to do some of the work in this area. They are also implementing a framework for health equity in the county as well. Our Maryland Children's Health Program, or MCHIP, processed over 6,000 applications for insurance, well over half among those with limited English proficiency, and 14% among pregnant women. And our department was actually able to onboard a second full-time interpreter for the agency. So in addition to the contract interpreters we have one fully for Spanish speakers, as well as a staff member dedicated to our Haitian Creole speaking population. And in a subsequent slide here, you'll see some of the increases in those LEP services that are pretty significant. The second area of health improvement is behavioral health. Again, just kind of a highlight of a few data points here. We do see some promising trends. The annual overdose deaths seem to be on the decline, as well as the 3-year average suicide rate. But again, I believe we did speak about this in our May update. Some of the indicators for high school student suicide or depression risk, including poor mental health days and feeling sad or hopeless for weeks on end, do have a significant increase. But the health department is doing a lot of work here as well. So in addition to the existing substance abuse counseling that we already provide in our health department clinics, we were able to form a new medication assisted treatment, or MAT, partnership with the detention center this past fiscal year. That is continuing to grow in FY25. You all are very well aware of our COAT team. Last year, this past fiscal year, they assisted 435 individuals, and almost 2/3 of those individuals were linked to treatment. And this is a benchmark this team hits year to year. So they are consistently getting people that are reaching out for help into the appropriate treatment. And then finally, our LBHA, or Local Behavioral Health Authority, provided several trainings for prevention and support throughout the county last year, 29 total across 755 individuals trained, including 149 in mental health first aid, which is a growing evidence-based program that we are now able to offer both to adults and to youth. And then the final health priority here is chronic disease and wellness. These strategies here include reducing the prevalence and mortality of chronic disease, as well as promoting healthy lifestyles. And so, unfortunately, we have seen the prevalence of diabetes increase recently, but we are seeing decreases in cancer deaths and heart disease deaths. And heart disease does remain the leading killer of county residents here and throughout the United States. We do continue to try to increase those healthy lifestyles. One of those areas we look at are the leisure time physical activity, but we see that about only 1/4 of or over 1/4 of county adults reported having no leisure time physical activity. So to this end, our programs, our prevention division was able to rapidly expand its diabetes prevention program, and they provided 4 cohorts of this program in FY24 with a 95% retention rate through the critical session 4. This is a CDC benchmark. We are also able to provide one of those cohorts in Spanish and another specifically in Haitian Creole, which was the first for this region. Our screening programs in the health department across these various cancers were also very busy. 422 women served in our breast and cervical cancer programs, as well as 39 in the colorectal program. And we're already actually booking into next fiscal year, so FY26, for colorectal screenings. We're also identifying opportunities for crossover in our programs. So one of the areas I'd like to highlight here is that our Village Dental Center, not only did they serve 5,300 patients for dental procedures, but they were also able to perform over 600 blood pressure screenings as well. So some of this crossover work that our programs are, busting out of the silos and trying to work across. Okay, so our second strategic priority, again, of those 4, is communication. Much of the work we do under this plan, like you said, or like we just walked through, was through health improvement, but we are also completing objectives in these other areas. And so for communication, internally, we have looked at assessing an internal communications plan, expanding our customer feedback, both from staff and to our internal programs. So internal customers could be IT, HR, et cetera, as well as expanding our external customer satisfaction survey. We have also continued to grow our reach across social media, and including Facebook and some other platforms. And so as I mentioned earlier, this, and I believe last year we were able to show this chart at the 8,800 mark. This is the number of encounters that the health department had among limited English proficiency clients, both starting in fiscal 20 through last year. So you can see this is a pretty slanted line direct up. Last year we provided over 4,000 hours of language access services for clients, and these encounters among those of LEP are almost 5 times higher compared to where we started in 2020. So again, having those 2 full-time staff on board for interpretation was very critical. We also added some supplemental questions, again, to customer satisfaction feedback, and we're looking at not only, we're providing these services, but how good are the interpretation services that we are able to have, whether that's in person or using telephonic language line. And speaking of customer satisfaction, overall, we're doing really well. In FY24, we had a 96% overall customer satisfaction rate, but also across several specific questions, looking for feedback that staff were helpful, respectful, clients are receiving the services they need, that these services are easy to understand, and that we're serving them in a timely manner. We had a goal of 300 responses for the agency last year, and we tripled that. So received 945 responses. About 1/3 were from our LEP clients. So again, we want to make sure we're representative of the clients that we're serving. Priority 3 in the strategic plan is our workforce. So we want to strengthen workforce efforts through succession planning, retention, and recruitment of a competent and diverse workforce. And so we have been doing this since summer 2022. We launched an internal workforce development committee, and they are tasked with maintaining our workforce development plan, as well as implementing any of the objectives in the plan. And so each year, the committee reviews the agency's demography, and at the end of FY24 here, you can see the breakdown of our staff at that time. About 1 in 10 employees, which is the bottom right-hand side here, could retire within 5 years or less. So again, really focusing on that succession planning. And While parts of the recruitment process are fully owned by the health department, as a state agency, when we go to hire, we are reliant on parts of that process at the state level. So we are taking a look at the average amount of time to fill vacancies as well, and providing that feedback to those stakeholders. Unfortunately, burnout does continue to exist, well, among many careers, but certainly in public health post-pandemic. We recognize that burnout is a significant factor as we address workforce retention at the department. And so looking at some of the recent publications, one from CDC citing that 46% of health workers feeling, burnt out in 2022, up from 32% in 2018, and almost half, 44%, intending to look for a new job, up from about 1/3 in 2018. One key investment, though, that we have right now is the CDC's Public Health Infrastructure Grant. These are funds to support the workforce in addition to foundational capabilities, as well as data modernization. These funds allowed us to sustain existing positions in FY24, as well as to provide a series of employee wellness activities. The Workforce Development Committee also completed a supportive work environment policy scan and gap analysis, and this is aligned again with our accreditation requirements through the Public Health Accreditation Board. These are an assessment to look at wellness, recognition, and inclusive culture. And as we speak, the de Beaumont Foundation is conducting the latest Public Health Workforce Interest and Needs Survey, otherwise known as PH-WINS. And this is a huge survey. It's a big push throughout the state as well as the country. But this data will inform the next renewal of workforce development at our agency. And one of those areas the committee has really taken a strong focus on over the past year and a half is professional development. And so we want to actively integrate these sets of core competencies for public health professionals into our training plans over the next few years. These are a standard set of knowledge and skills that all public health professionals should have in order to conduct their roles throughout our department. And then finally, the last strategic priority area is technology. The health department already completed its initial objectives from the strategic plan for service delivery and information management, including procurement and implementation of business intelligence or BI products to improve communication, as well as procurement and implementation of a new electronic health record for our dental center. In addition, the agency also expanded the use of its service desk, again, to look at internal requests across several areas, as well as the completion of a large-scale project scanning paper records into our EHR systems. This will be a huge space saver, especially transitioning to a new building at some point, as well as a time saver, right, for staff that have to do research on another request. And then not directly related to some of the strategic areas, but of note, for sure, definitely our maternal and child health programs. So in brief, these programs are very, very busy in FY24, providing case management to over 300 at-risk pregnant and postpartum mothers and infants in our Thrive by 3 program, as well as care coordination for 170 at-risk women in our Babies Born Healthy program, including safe sleep education, as well as car seat safety education. In addition, our MCH programs distributed 122 pack and plays to families that did not have safe sleep locations, and served almost 100% of the caseload of the WIC program here on the Lower Eastern Shore, also ensuring that 95% of our families in our home visiting program completed at least the standard of 3 visits per year. We do continue to recognize that HIV and STIs and family planning remain high priorities in the county, even as funding for these programs does decline. In FY24, our HIV program served 375 clients, providing over 1,300 tests. Our STI program served over 2,000 clients, or almost 2,000, one shy of 2,000 clients and 2,700 visits. And our family planning clinic served over 2,300 clients across 2,900 visits. Switching gears.
Now moving into our other updates and our environmental health being one that is usually looked for. We reduced the median number of business days to complete applications to 16.5 day or 16.5 days. We had a recent rabies clinic and we vaccinated 226 animals and completed 99 land evaluation applications from the previous fiscal year. Yeah.
That's where you went ahead, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
As you can see here's the July 1st update report that we run, and this kind of outlines the whole fiscal year 24 gamut, and you can see the amount of applications that we completed. So for septic permitting, we completed 122 applications in the fiscal year. We also completed 96 land evaluations, and we pretty much caught up from outstanding ones that were from our 3-year period without a wet season. You will see that the received completion date is a little elevated. That was specifically due to our focus on getting the land evaluations completed, as we had such a large backlog from not having a wet season available in the preceding 3 years. That number will decrease here significantly, and it has so already, based off our October numbers. We're down to 40 days from receive to completion of a septic permitting application. Moving into our opioid restitution funding, we have once again had an RFP out and available for the community to apply for any funding to focus on any opioid or overdose related activities in the community. We did not receive any applications. This previous fiscal year spending, we provided funding to the county EMS and fire departments to purchase the hand-heavy technology enterprise to better assess and provide medication for those suffering from any potential overdoses. Our upcoming projects, we're about to release a RFP for harm reduction vending machines. Many of the counties in the state already have these, and some of our surrounding counties do as well. Salisbury University is the first location here within the county that has one, and we're looking to expand those to provide those in various areas of the community to provide harm reduction supplies to further reduce any potential harm or overdoses in the county. We also have plans for educational expansions of evidence-based programs like the Botvine Life Skills program with the county schools. We also have done a draft targeted abatement plan that, once reviewed, completed, and submitted to the state, will open up additional monies for the county to acquire. Again, it's imperative that we always have the community and community leaders' engagement within the health department. You all are the voice of the community, and appreciate any insight, any avenue that you can provide us, that communication or direction, so we can better serve the community. One final thing that I will touch on, because I know it has made news recently, is the current investigation for PFAS in the community. We are not the lead agency. We are in collaboration with the Maryland Department of the Environment and with agricultural business. They are doing initial testing to determine if there is any potential contamination in surrounding groundwater. Once those initial investigations are done, first take place, and out of abundance of caution, they are offering water for the residents that have been contacted. If there are further questions with that, I'm happy to answer as much as I have. And with that, I appreciate your time, and thank you for allowing us the time to talk with you. On behalf of Christina and myself, thank you. If you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from anybody?
I got
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
partnerships with our local fire departments and SFD. What do we do with that?
So partnerships, we have the SWIFT team that we operate. We do a Leave Behind program with city and county EMS, or city EMS, to provide Narcan Leave Behind, basically. Law enforcement, we have our LEAD program that we can go out and help divert away from maybe criminal proceedings, but help into treatment options of that nature. With the Department of Corrections, we provide MOUD, or medication for opiate use disorder, within the jail system. And we're going to start working with the city for their early induction of buprenorphine program that they'll be starting. I guess they have started. I believe there's been 1 or 2 individuals who've taken advantage of that program. So we're continuously looking for options in the realms of our overdose prevention strategies that we engage with those individuals.
And I will say those agencies are wonderful partners on our fatality review team. So we regularly review cases for overdoses, as well as, unfortunately, infant and child fatalities. And those agencies are well represented.
Thank you. Actually, I had somebody contact me over the weekend about COVID test kits. Is the health department providing those this year? Or?
So we do have some. However, I believe our supply is very limited in the state. Have a mass supply anymore. We will provide what we have, but what we have in stockpile does have, I believe it's a December 24 expiration date, unless it's been expanded.
Not right now.
So if somebody wanted one, they could just go to one of the health department complexes, and if they're available, they'll get one.
What supplies we have.
Okay.
But there are availabilities, pharmacies, primary care physicians, and care where they can be tested.
And I think they can still be ordered online too.
Yes,
Is that correct?
it is free. You can still go to, I think, covid.gov.
COVID.gov, I think. Yeah.
And I believe you can order still free from the federal government.
Okay.
And have it shipped directly to your house.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I noticed that you had noted that that there was some success. What did I take a note on? That overdoses and suicides seem to be reducing, which I thought was really good. That's always nice to see, because I believe the last time he gave us a report, it was actually increasing. There was huge concern over it. So we're glad to see that turn around. Any specific idea of what maybe has created that difference?
Well, you had trendline data. So this data was most likely that we presented on previously was taken and acquired during peak COVID time. So that would be my interpretation of the mental strain that came through the pandemic, caused an increase of individuals to feel distressed, isolated, which we know are all significant health risk, and I believe even loneliness has been, reported as #1 upcoming health crisis. So I believe that is it. There's also been a lot of outreach and work, not just through my agency, but through all area agencies. You had the Life Crisis Center here earlier. They provide their services to the community. We have the Crisis Center. I believe it's just really honing in and providing those services within the community that has helped.
And I will caution, one of the unfortunate barriers to data, especially as an epidemiologist, is that we're on a lag. So you'll see that I am presenting the latest data, but that is 2022. So we know anecdotally, we know what's going on in our communities. We may be hearing an increase, but those final numbers are not actually released from the state until much, much later. So as of the publication of this data, the trend is decreasing, but we want to make sure we're on top of, sustaining these programs so that, that we see, when change does happen.
Okay. I do know that you are continuing with a really vibrant opioid awareness month. I think Wicomico has a great one. Wicomico has been the leader actually in a lot of our efforts towards battling opioid abuse, and I really the credit to you all as well. I was at Shorebridge Stadium, I know, and that was a huge layout. That was really nice, because all the counties participated.
Yes,
which is really
our Tri-County kickoff event is at the Shorebridge Stadium, and we have great support from the Wicomico does a fantastic job, especially with all the events that we have throughout the different organizations really stepping up to make an awareness campaign.
And it makes a difference. If you don't think it makes a difference, you ought to see how many people attend it. Whether it's at Winter Place or whether it's at Shorebridge Stadium, to see how many people have attended the events over the years. And they appreciate it. You can see publicly one-on-one how it's so much appreciated, how they've managed to recover, friends or families have managed to recover. It's a lot of, I think you really see the efforts of your work coming to play there.
It is extremely rewarding to be able to be at those events and see the impact that we're making with individuals' lives every day.
Noticing on sort of another note, I know when we met, we're going to be meeting with a school board a little later today, but when we met with them in the last quarterly meeting, we noticed that from the school board, they have recognized this large influx of migrants who are coming to the Wicomico County area. It's something you read about in the papers day and night. You read about it nationally, and every single day you recognize it, but you don't always know. Well, maybe not in Wicomico County or not in Salisbury, but I think we're seeing signs of that locally, specifically through our contact with the Board of Education and second language learners, who are the numbers are astronomically increasing. Which is fine, except for it does create a burden, an unexpected burden of resources on the county. And I think all small communities throughout the country are beginning to feel this. I'm wondering how you're witnessing that from your perspective.
So it does affect us as well. I believe we're 5 times higher 5 years ago. So we had 4,000 hours this past fiscal year that we dedicated to LEP. We had, 6,000 individuals for MCHIP, our Maryland Health Insurance Program, and over half of those were from LEP communities. And we just see our budget expenses in every program, how much more we have to set aside for translation or interpretation service. We have a growing number of people who register for our civil surgeon appointments, which is the initial steps of immigration. So we do have seen a growing number increase, and it has caused a little bit of a financial constraint, making sure that we have the ability to provide interpretation service, translation service for these individuals. But we make do because we provide that service for the community, and we need to be able to provide that service because without us, there would be no one else for them to go to seek some of the care that we provide.
And that's very true. I read an article the other day that actually really made a real poignant comment that in a local government or in a local community, you expect to have autonomy, and you expect yourself to be in control of your environment, able to do what you can in order to address the concerns. A lot of that, of course, is going to be through some type of taxation, some type of regulation, some type of programs to enhance the community and to help those in need. This, though, it seems to be a different sense where we've kind of lost that autonomy. someone called me and said, I think there's a bus that was dropped off, people were dropped off on a bus. And of course, from my perspective, I have to tell that person, there's nothing I have that I can control this over. I have no control over this. This is a reality that exists today and exists in this community now as much as it does throughout the United States. So I say that because the only answer to this really is to try to get some assistance from the state level, and especially we should be getting assistance from the federal level. So are there efforts that you see that we need to be taking, that as this council might need to be taking, or your agency needs to be taking to address this funding shortfall? Because it is about funding. It's not acclamation, it's funding.
It is funding. It's been a tight budget year. The local health departments across the state each received about a 10% reduced funding from for Wicomico. That was $500,000 around that in funding for services. But we just have to be adaptable and flexible. I know there are recent plans in place to throughout the state. I believe they're geared more towards Montgomery and County for what happens if a large caravan would come. So the state is working on that. I don't know how much funding goes out into maybe the shore or rural communities in that regard, though.
Oh, I would just say stay vigilant with it. I think your department is going to see a lot of this. Roads isn't going to see much of this. The airport isn't going to witness this, but I think your department is going to see a lot of the impact of this, just as the Board of Education is going to see a huge impact from this. So I think we need to be vigilant in trying to address it. Any opportunity you can from the state level or federal level, as we would also try to do as your representatives on the local level.
I appreciate that.
Sure. And then we have the septic and permitting and things like that, which we love to talk about more than anything from this area. We get calls on that. We don't get as many calls on some of your other concerns as we might in reference to septic installations and things like that. You gave the statistics here. I always find them a little hard to sort of decipher. That's probably all on me.
No, there's a lot of information there.
That's my fault. Try to give as much as I can. So
That's all right.
let me
That's
help you
okay.
break it down.
That's okay. But I guess what our main concern is how your time frame is changing. You do mention the years and things that were completed in 2024. There's a fiscal year 2023 application. It says that there were, I guess, 21% were completed in 24. So I look at that and I say, well, did it take a year to get this completed? And
So those were some of that backlog that was around when I first started. And they've just continued to stay on. And really what happens, you'll see in this open application spot, there's 139.3 days. That is not a true, that's a number of all the applications we have. That doesn't mean we're not working on it or we haven't done work on that application. It could mean we have done the site work, we have reviewed it, we're just waiting for a design, or we told the individuals they need to change this or that. We're changing from a conventional in-ground system to a above grade system or an at grade system. So this incorporates loss of follow-up, everything of that nature. The most accurate is in this closed application section that says 53.7 days. This is on average how quickly, if you were to submit your application today, you would expect to receive a response in your finalized permit in 53.7 days. If you collaborated with us and did your duties and responsibility as a property owner. And like I said, that number now is 40 days. So there's been a reduction in 13 days and 3 months.
How many applicants fell into that 53 days? How many?
Well,
So that's the average across the number of closed applications.
so
you're looking at.
159 applicants fell within those 53.7 days.
The average among 159 closed applications was the 53
So
days.
you had 159, am I right here, 159 applications that had their septics approved within 53 days?
The average
Yeah.
among those.
Yeah.
So it could be some that were much less and some that were a little more.
Yeah, we asked because it appears, it's beginning to appear more and more. I talked to a lot of realtors and developers and installers and things like that, and it's almost seeming to be that in Wicomico County, Sussex is a lot different. You know, they have Tidewater that comes in and handles a lot of their growth, and it makes a huge difference. We're talking thousands as opposed to hundreds. But in this, it appears that Wicomico is sort of resorting period to holding tanks or mounds, which are not the most cost-efficient methods for them to be able to, for anyone to afford a house. We're going to have a meeting here later on about affordability issues. During the time when Wicomico County was really growing and building, we had a whole, our regulations within the county itself were so much different through the health department, through MDE, MDH, and any of the programs where you could build, you were seeing a lot of subdivisions being built in the county continuously. So we had great numbers. But within the last 10, 15 years, that has really closed down a lot. And our options are very, 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 very limited. It's almost to the effect from a water and sewer master plan that we have to depend on the municipalities to handle those problems, to address those issues for the county. Do you see anything in the future that will maybe show some more positive signs that our only options are not going to be just mound systems and holding tanks, which are exorbitantly expensive to try to pump out every few months?
So there's always new and inventive and alternative designs coming. But we're at the discretion of the Maryland Department of Environment and what they approve. They have specialized expertise and individuals that investigate these new systems, and then they approve them for use throughout the state. So a lot of what freedom we have is not necessarily freedom. It's just us following the directions of the Maryland Department of Environment. So when they crack down, it makes it harder on us, except they're not necessarily the customer-focused organization.
Yeah, that's well said. We will be meeting with the Maryland Department of the Environment, I think, in a couple of days here. Are you attending that, or I don't know if you received an invitation?
I don't believe I received an invitation for it.
We'll send it to you in case you can make it. I know it's last minute notice, and if you can, it'd be nice to have any input that you might want us to ask the secretary at the time. That would be very important for us.
I'd be happy to.
Yeah, we'd appreciate it. How are you staffed? Because I know for a while it was chaos.
Yeah, we were bare bone. I believe when I came on board, we had our environmental health director, we had one licensed environmental health specialist and a trainee. We now have 2 trained licensed environmental health specialists, a landside supervisor, the environmental health director, and 2 trainees. So we have basically 6 staff that are able to do the landside work. So
That's good. That's
compared
good.
to 3, it's a big step up.
Yeah, well, congratulations, because it hasn't been easy. I know it hasn't been easy, so it's good to hear.
And one of the considerations the Workforce Development Committee is taking in, especially recently, is how we continue to sustain those relationships, especially here with SU. There is no environmental health track specifically anymore, but where can we look in biology and those kind of things to get internships in place to really give exposure to the programs as an option of a career path that may not be, at the forefront of some of the students. So it's still a priority for us, even though we are staffed right now.
That's good. That's good. I know Chief Frampton's trying to do the same thing, and so are our volunteers in trying to engage earlier through those programs, either through the high school or the colleges or the community colleges, to get those people in. So good. That's a good measure. I'm glad to see you're looking at that. Any other questions? Any other comments from you? All right, Director McConaughey, Ms. Gray, thank you very much.
Well, I guess I have
Yes.
one further comment. With us now entering respiratory virus season, I would just highly recommend anybody to go and get inoculated for whatever vaccination they're available for, be it pneumonia, RSV, COVID, and flu. That way you can protect yourself and the community as a whole. Wash your hands, cover your mouth, do all the things you learn in elementary school, and that will keep you and others safe and healthy through this virus-ridden season.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate all your hard work. Very
Thank you.
good. Thanks again. Entertain a motion from Health Board to adjourn from the local health board to reconvene into the legislative session of Wicomico County Council.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We don't have a quorum. We're stuck. We now reconvene as the Wicomico County Council. First item on the agenda is public comments. If you have any comments you'd like to make, come to the podium. Please state your name, your county of residence, and your concerns. Yes, sir. Morning.
Good morning. My name is Eric Remian. I'm a resident of Wicomico County at the Chestnut Hill Owners Association. And I had the opportunity about on the 2nd of October to hear a presentation by the Wicomico County Public Parks Department and the Public Works Department regarding Leonard Mill Ponds improvements that are planned for 2025. The sluice gates are currently malfunctioning at that pond. And as a result of that, there's a total of 3 gates. 2 of them are not working at all. One is working, but it doesn't close all the way. So as a result of that, it leaks. I'm told that the improvements to repair those are going to be planned for the end of 2025, which is great. The concern is that we have an invasive species that are migrating up the Wicomico River, and currently the northern snakeheads are not in Leonard Mill Pond. I'm told that they're potentially in Johnson's Pond. So I asked the gentleman if there were any plans to control that migration when they repair the sluice gates, and I was told that they don't consider any environmental protection issues when they do that kind of work. I'm asking that when they do that work, they take that into consideration so that we can potentially prevent that invasive species into the pond.
Very good. Very, very good. We appreciate that. We'll make a note of that and pass that on as well, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Hi, I'm Molly Hilligoss, CEO of Habitat for Humanity of Wicomico County and a resident of Wicomico County in Salisbury. And I just wanted to make a couple comments about the introductions of the 2 pieces of legislation that you introduced today. It seems that offering a tax exemption for the airplane landing strips, and then in the next one saying we want to take away tax exemptions, it seems to me that that's showing some type of favoritism when my opinion is that we need more incentives across the board for businesses to locate here. So if the intent is to modify the Horizon program so that it can expand across Wicomico County and perhaps reduce the barrier, so that $10 million investment, to reduce that perhaps down to $2 million. If it had been $2 million and perhaps less restrictive, then our project in Fruitland might have qualified. So we had to raise $1.8 million. I'm still paying off developers for the project there. So there needs to be an expansion of tax credits that will bring more jobs because we've lost so many employers over the last 20 years. And there's rumor that another large employer is going to be laying off half of their staff. So it's very concerning. The health department already shared 17% poverty. I've shared with you through email a shortage of 2,200 housing units for families that are earning under 50% of the area median income. Those are part of the 17% living in poverty. I believe that you are in office to solve problems. That's what you're here to do. You're here to serve. And I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see you broaden it. So expand the tax incentives for development for both business and housing. Respond to the community needs, folks. That's what we're here for. That's what I'm here for. We have a waiting list right now at Habitat for Humanity of 105 families. I will forward that list to you later today. These are families that have been here that need critical home repairs. I need your help to find resources to help these families. 105 families. Multiply that by 20,000. I don't have that kind of money. I mean, where can I find that money? I need your help. And the families that need housing now, they need your help. And if that means incentives for developers across the area, then we need to figure it out. Figure it out, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hilligoss.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Council. Holly Ortel, county resident and president of the Wicomico County Firefighters Association. It's been a up and down year for us all. What I do want to do is I want to thank Councilman Baker and also Chief Twilley for working so hard for the legislative bill for the tax credit for the firefighters. That does not go unnoticed. I want to thank you gentlemen for always supporting us and coming to our association meetings. That too does not go unnoticed. I did have a couple phone calls probably in the last week and a half, and I haven't shared them with the council people that I've spoken with, but one of the flyers, it says, this November help support our brave first responders by voting for Wicomico County ballot, question A, and return the county to the council-based system and local government. Nobody reached out to me, and it's saying, you know, for our first responders. I don't know if that's for the police officers, the firefighters and EMS up in Salisbury, or if you all were talking about the volunteers. Nobody came to me. I don't believe anybody went to Chief Tyler for the Chiefs Association, and I'm personally not for it. That's just me, you know. I would love to see the council and the executive work together. If, you know, if we're out on a fire call, and it's up in Salisbury, and Chief Frampton is running the scene, and I don't like what the chief has to say, does it mean we get rid of the chief's position? No. We all have to work together, and we can do so much good as a county working together. So many different personalities, you know. County executive has a different personality. All y'all up there have different personalities, but we've got to work together for the residents of this county. That's what we need. We need to focus on all of us, and that's the only way things are going to get done. And when we do it, things get done. If I'm not doing a good job for our county, for the 11 companies that I represent, don't get rid of my position. Find somebody to take my position over. I mean, it's just too much time wasted. I had two people from your area, Shane, call me and said, it's going to cost 30-some thousand dollars of taxpayers' money to run an ad in the paper about this ballot. Why would we do that? I don't know. If I'm wrong, please let me know I'm wrong. I just hope, either which way, if people vote against it or people vote for it, either which way, that we work together so we can work for the county, and so much more can be done for all of us sitting in this room. So that's all I have to say. I thank you guys very much.
Thank you, President Ortell.
Good morning. My name's John Palmer, Delmar resident, school board member, and about a month ago I came and gave you a graph that showed you how our funding is looking for the Wicomico County schools. And from studying that, I'm sure you can see it's not looking too good. Now we're in the midst of doing a redistricting in the county, and I'm going to tell you right now, we put a lot of work into it, but in a year it's not going to be any good because the school population is changing so much that we're going to be right back up here doing it again. I go around the county, I knock on doors, and I hand that graph out to the people, and I'm not afraid to come up and beg for help or money. So I might even come and ask you the next time, we might need some of those rooms over at the Civic Center to set up classrooms, because 29 and 30 little kids in a classroom is not the way to teach. So I'm just giving you a forewarning that we have some serious problems ahead, and maybe somebody can come up with a 5-year plan on restoring money, or at least getting the money going in the right direction for the Board of Education. I appreciate you coming to our meetings and seeing what we do, so that part I really do like. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer.
Good morning, Robert Taylor, County resident. I want to appreciate the council moving ahead on doing away with the Horizon program, long overdue. It's time to let the developers know that the gravy train won't stop here anymore. They're going to have to make it do with the normal way of proceeding. And I would just comment to Ms. Hillegas, rather than asking for more tax breaks, let's take the money that isn't going to go to the Ross investors and isn't going to go to Gillis for their apartments and the other high-density development. Let's take that money that would otherwise go to them if they got the tax break, and let's put that into a affordable housing initiative like they have in some other counties, which I think Ms. Hillegas has once suggested. I mean, that's the way to proceed to solve our real housing problem, which is affordable housing. Now, I want to also comment on the Greater Salisbury Committee white paper. I was an ag economics major. Now, I did have economics, and I can tell you the economics at the university I went to right up here, this would have failed. It's simply a comparison to 2 counties in Delaware that have much greater growth than we do, and for obvious reasons. First of all, they're in Delaware, not Maryland. Big factor. Secondly, Sussex County has miles of oceanfront and bayfront beaches. And Kent County has the state capital, a major Air Force base, and it's within spitting distance of the Wilmington metropolitan area. Now, if Mr. McCain and his group really want to make us like there, wave your magic wand, bring the ocean 25 miles to the west, take Patuxent Air Base, move that down here, take Annapolis, move the state capital down here, and yeah, we'll be like those 2 counties in Delaware. That ain't going to happen. We don't have any job growth here. We don't have any attraction for people, and it's not because we don't have homes, it's because we don't have the attractions that they do. Very simple. Now, let's look at the people who wrote this with Mr. McCain. Let's look what they do. Austin Whitehead, real estate. Gillis Gilkerson, we know what they do. McCain and Associates, appraisers. Brett Davis, builder. Just go down the list and look at them. It's not the voice of the people. It's not Vox Populi. I and others are Vox Populi. We don't want to look like Eastern Sussex County. We like it here. That's why I moved here. I grew up across the bay, and I could see what was happening there when I got out of the Navy. And I came down here to get away from that, and so did a lot of other people. So let's keep it like it is. Yes, we can do some job growth if we do it reasonably, but let's face it, Sweat hadn't done nothing for 30 years. And that's why big reason why we don't have it. Our manufacturing base is left. Crown Cork and Seal, Dresser Wayne, Fairchild, Camel, they're all gone. We got to do something about that. That's how we improve, not by throwing money that goes into the bottom pockets of developers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Can I just hand out some info? I just want to give some data.
Yes. Thank you. Morning.
Good morning, Honorable Wicomico County Council Chamber. Thank you for your service. Public service is a calling, and I appreciate your dedication and time that you devote for the service of our citizens. My name is Leonard Arby. I'm the Department Chairperson for Finance and the Purdy School of Business at Salisbury University, also county resident since 2008. 2 kids born here, attending public schools. I appreciate the people who spoke before me, the firefighter as well as the police chief. What we do actually impacts the lives of the citizens on a daily basis. So I'm here particularly to talk about how the county can be more attractive to attract businesses. And one of the things you want to consider is the Socrates triple filter to identify whether something that they're going to do is good or not, right? The 3 filters. First is truthfulness. Next is whether it's good. And the third is usefulness. I'm particularly speaking in relevance to repealing the Horizon tax credit. This legislation was passed in August of 2021 after a lot of deliberation. This legislation was so good that the state of Maryland took it on its part and then made it statewide. Why? Because incentives do matter. To dispute what the gentleman who spoke previously here, I'm a part, for fair disclosure, I'm an equity investor, a minor equity investor in the Ross project. It is impossible to bring investment to a tertiary market like Salisbury, and that is exactly the reason you don't see any large-scale development happening here. We literally made 2,500 calls for people to invest here, and they wouldn't. Why? Because it is too risky. Will I see any returns on the Ross? Probably not. But I was foolish enough that I took my money and then invested here because it's for the good of the people. $48 million was invested. It would not have been possible without the tax incentives because the economics do not work. Why? $48 million of local jobs, construction, plumbing, heating, cooling. These are local contractors who are working, right? Without the Ross project, the assessed value of the 3 parcels that we assembled was $2.1 million. And over a 20-year period, the total revenue generated, you can see from the handout, the last page, it's roughly about I would say $550,000. Very last page, right? Including the tax incentives that was given by the county and city, the total revenue raised over a 20-year period would be $7 million. Would the county be okay with receiving $500,000 in revenues over the next 20 years or an additional $7.1 million over the next 20 years? Think about it. Does it pass the test? Is it useful? Yes. Is it good? It's good for the community. 10 people are working. There'll be janitors, maintenance crew, property managers, people working. We have tripled the number of residents living in the downtown, meaning all the businesses are thriving because of one single project. Imagine the multiplier effect for that. So is it good? It's good for the community. Lastly, is it useful? Absolutely. So let's put aside the partisan politics and do what's right for the community. If we want growth, manufacturing is gone. We are in a new era of economy where service jobs is where we need to be. High density growth where people can actually interact, create jobs is where the growth is. As an economist, today the Nobel Prize for Economics was announced. And please read that, why they were awarded. The countries that grow wealthiest precisely because of institutions, economic benefits, and the role that the rule of law actually plays. So we can change the rules of the game in between because you don't just like something. So what you do matters. If we want to be wealthy, lift all citizens up, and be equitable, do the right thing. Expand the Horizon tax credit, make it more equitable so that you can do a lot more affordable housing. Otherwise, this is suicidal. It's going to be bad for the county and the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mikkel Darlene Delmar. As we approach the election, I want to reflect on this past year and look into the future. Our county faces a huge decision, and many constituents, like myself, feel adrift amidst the contention and conflicting information. This year has been nothing short of a nightmare for myself, my family, neighbors, and community, all at the hands of our current executive. Our attempts to be heard, reason, and negotiate have been met with hostility, derision, and intimidation. We were thrown headfirst into the situation, and we have had to endure things no citizen should. I've heard it said that what happened to our community was the catalyst for Question A. If so, we had no idea when this all began. All the same, I never want any resident of Wicomico to experience what we have. Many who had already experienced similar abuses of power reached out to us to share their stories. We were not the first, but I hope that we will be the last. Being a cautious person, I hesitate to commit fully to voting for Question A. I spent months researching, speaking with residents, and listening to varied perspectives. I reached the conclusion that I will vote in favor because the unchecked power of the executive branch is a clear and imminent danger to the people of Wicomico. I believe it is incredibly misleading to say that voting against Question A will maintain the balance of power. How can this be true when the power is so clearly skewed in favor of the executive branch? A perfect example is Safari at the Quarry, in which the mayor of Salisbury wrote a cease and desist letter, the county council wrote a demand for termination, over 1,000 citizens signed a petition, and the foremost environmental agencies, including the executive's own advisory board, stood against the event, and yet she proceeded anyways. What clearer picture could demonstrate the out-of-control, rogue, and bullying nature of the executive? Those of us who stood against it were subjected to personal attacks and even attempts at arrest. I wanted to believe that revisions could be made to the charter to correct some of these imbalances until I learned that they had already been made and circumvented. The current executive has claimed such revisions are another power grab. It seems as I said whenever there is a challenge. I don't think a councilmatic form is perfect, but 7 people are far less likely to corrupt or to exercise dictator-like power rather than a single individual. The people of Wicomico elect these 7, and they are accountable to them. Power distributed among many is much less likely to be abused than power concentrated in one. Regardless of how this vote turns out, we will have an executive for at least 2 more years. This is why it is imperative that we act now, no matter the outcome. Councilman James Wynn proposed measures to make the executive office more transparent and accountable. I couldn't agree more, and I feel that this is how it should happen. The executive should match the transparency and accountability of the council immediately. She should hold bi-monthly public meetings for which she produces an agenda and a briefing book that includes all relevant documents. There should be time for public comments aired on PAC 14. She should produce a list of all contracts, MOUs, and a means of public input before they are signed. There must be a formal avenue to address grievances. We cannot wait. This is needed now. If this referendum passes, 2 years of being blindsided, kept in the dark, and finding out about MOUs on Facebook is too long. If it does not pass, the need for these measures will be even more dire. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is James Nalleen from Wicomico County. I support the words that my wife, Mikkel, just recently spoke. I have an analogy that I think fits Amendment A decision in our upcoming election. We all know what a family looks like. Mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, grandparents, siblings, even the occasional unruly child working together towards a common goal. They may disagree and argue, but at the end of the day, they support each other. Our legislative body, our council, is supposed to be that kind of family. They are elected to represent us, to be our voice, and to work together for the good of our community. We expect some lively debate, but ultimately where they work together for the people. The executive branch, however, is more like a Disney parent, operating with a disregard for the rules, making ill-advised promises, and catering to special interest groups. They often act against the will of the people and the representatives we elected. And they often do it in secret behind closed doors. While our legislative family should be striving for consensus and the long-term good, the executive branch seems more concerned with personal gain and short-term satisfaction. While a family values transparency and open communication, they operate in secrecy, making deals in the shadows. This Disney behavior has created a division between the government and the people, eroding trust. We must demand better and hold the executive accountable. We need a government that truly represents the will of the people. Vote for or yes on question A this November to eliminate the executive branch and get rid of the Disney in our county. On another note, I encourage the council to bring some attention to the Connolly Mill property to solidify its future as a public park. The uncertainty on this property is concerning given its history. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Holly Campbell, Wicomico County. Couple quick things. I attended a couple of the sessions available recently. I attended the legislative breakfast that was conducted with all of the very important stakeholders, delegates, senators.
Could you do me a favor and back up to the mics, make sure that they can hear you? Thank you.
Is that better?
That's great.
I was saying I attended the legislative breakfast in September. I will say I was very disappointed that this was not publicized to the greater public. The public notice was posted the day before, and I found out about it the morning of. It had been posted less than 24 hours before that meeting. I did jump in there about 20 minutes towards the end, and it probably would have been really beneficial, but the entire row of public seating was empty. I would like to make that note because I think it's important that the public be involved, and one of the problems we're having is the public is constantly excluded. So something of that magnitude with the largest scale of stakeholders for the public to not be involved, I think, is inexcusable. I also attended the lecture, the forum at Salisbury University that was advertised to be multiple viewpoints about question A. All three panelists actually supported the executive position, so was a little frustrated that it wasn't an informative session and it was more biased session. So I have an 18-year-old who's getting ready to vote for her first time, and I emptied my 8th grader's civics folder and I was dumping out all of her government structure items, and I said, I need to be able to explain to my kids what we're talking about here because they hear these conversations, they hear us listening to council meetings. I drew this chart because this is kind of what I was expecting to maybe see at that Salisbury University event where we would actually discuss the structure of our government and what are the pros and what are the cons. I could be wrong about some of these items, but I'm pretty sure this is how our government is structured. And I do hundreds of house inspections. From the outside, homes sometimes look great, everybody's looks fine, and then you get in, you start digging in the dirt, and you have some major structural issues. I feel that we have structural issues, and that is the topic of conversation, not personalities and the headbutting. I think it is structural, and I wanted to point out some things on here. The way our current government is set up, we, the people, all the people, I'm also tired of hearing that the people will lose a voice if they don't have an executive any longer. Because the way we're set up, all the people elect an executive, one person, and all the people elect the 7 of you. And that is a right that all people have. On this side of our chart, we have the executive who is elected. This is one person, so all the people have a vote in that one person. All the people also have a vote over here. Now, what is important, I think, in this chart is you have elected representatives on both sides. The concentration of power, which I've listed here that I think is up for discussion, is the fact that all of the appointed department heads, the ethics commission, the county lawyer, the director of administration, are all appointed by this person. So of the people in our last election, 51% voted for this person, 49% voted against that person. So currently, this whole concentration of decision-making power, 49% of the people have no interest, have no position in that. So I would like something like this to be discussed in the public so people could look at the structure and understand what the vote is about.
Thanks,
Maybe the
Kim.
council could have a public forum on that.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Jim Atkins, Wicomico County.
just want to review some things for the council and for the public who's watching, because they may not see some of these things that you have to do a little digging to find. So I want to go through first some thoughts from some recent episodes of the executive exclusive. Quote made by the county executive: "People of this county deserve to have someone who answers to them." Quote, end quote. I bet people Shadow Hills are happy to hear that. County executive stated that the collective bargaining agreement with the sheriff's office and that the county executives, her and two previous, were responsible for the $37 million new sheriff's building. You know, that would have been built and things would have been a whole lot better if you guys would have cooperated. But the county executives took care of it, so maybe next time you'll help out on a few problems. The statement was made also that the council voted the first proposal of the collective bargaining agreement down, and then they stated that the council said it was late being turned in. The response by the director of administration was that it was late being turned in because the council voted it down. So let's go back and do a little reminder of the facts. Special council meeting held on April the 26th. Personnel rules regarding the FOP state that negotiations were to be completed by March the 1st. Executive is required to submit the CBA to the council by April the 1st. The council is required to accept or reject the proposal of the CBA by May the 1st. If deadline was not being met, the executive was to supply the council with an explanation. The council was forced at this special meeting to extend the deadline until May 15th. Council scheduled a closed work session for May 7th to review the CBA, stated in order to properly discuss the CBA, they would need a copy by May the 3rd to review. Draft copy was sent to the council on April the 30th. Although it was incomplete, an additional draft was sent on May the 2nd. But according to the executive's office, it was late being turned in because the council voted it down. And finally, don't forget the council mentioned that negotiations should start in September, but they were told in September that they'll start in January. Executive states she allows light duty employees to park in her parking spot so they don't have to walk so far to get to the building. She can't understand all the fuss about this, but she fails to state that an employee parking in her spot was displaying a political sign in their vehicle, which apparently is against policy, or that she was asked by the sheriff not to do this as it was showing favoritism. Executive stated that it was irresponsible for the council to remove from the transportation priority letter a request to have a feasibility study done on Bering Creek Road. Here's what's irresponsible.
Mr. Atkins, you do need to wrap.
Okay.
Thanks.
Here's what's responsible. Spending $257,000 for architectural drawings, plans, and permits, and then letting them expire without taking any action. Ms. Hurley has the rest of the comments, so you'll get a chance to read them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Any other public comments?
Hello. My name is Corey Houston. I'm a county resident and county employee of Wicomico County. I don't know if you guys have seen this. I know two of you probably have been privy of it. It's the original county charter from 1980. The new county charter that has been put forth, a lot of it is the same, okay? What you guys don't understand, the director of administration, if they make $200,000 a year in annual salary, that these two, the old and this county amendment, if they don't make it in the first 3 months or 5 months of their year, they get paid out the rest of that salary. That's taxpayers' money. That is going to waste because now we have to refund that position for somebody to come in. Also in here, as it states, you guys want to duplicate Worcester County. Underneath Weston Young, there are 6 positions that help him run his position, not including the department heads. In your charter, there is nobody underneath your director of administration. So where's Laura Hurley going to go? Where's her position? Where's Lynn's position going to go? Because we have positions that are merit positions that are in the executive office. So where's that staff going to go? One person cannot run this county. Because I can tell you, with HR issues, we have been all hands on board. And for council to meet 2 times a month and one director of administration is not going to function in this county at all. It's a waste.
Yeah. Any other public comments? Seeing none, council comments. Joe?
First, I'd like to thank for everybody being here today. I've been wondering, I was saving this for when Bill McCain and Mike Dunn came to the table, but due to some of the comments that were made in public comments, I don't understand how a hotel tax credit can help the homelessness and the home building problem in Wicomico County. I understand it also says it's for multifamily units, but it's also for hotels. I don't understand how that fits. Now, the gentleman that got up, I was wondering where all the connection was, the Habitat to Humanity and the Ross Building tax credit and the Horizon tax credit. I was wondering how that all connected. But I guess today, when he handed us these papers, the Habitat, he's on the board. Is that correct? The gentleman on the board of Habitat, he said?
I believe.
He's also the investor in Ross.
That's the impression I get.
Yeah, okay. So I guess there's a connection. I was wondering what it was at. So about 3 years ago, the council, in a 4-3 vote, voted to do the Horizon tax credit. We had that under consideration now, reconsideration. But I had a phone call from a lady that was 81 years old at that time, and apparently she watches our council meetings. And she said, why are you giving a tax credit to a hotel or a motel or to the Ross Building when I've been paying taxes on Camden Avenue for 60-some years, her and her husband? I've never had a tax break. My taxes keep going up. And of course, I told her at that time I was not going to vote for it. So she called me back. She's still around, still watching our council meetings. God bless her. She said, you know, she said, I've been watching and reading the agenda. She said, I got a 24% increase last year in my assessments on my property. She says, I'm a widow. She says, but I'm going to be able, the federal government's making it up for me. I'm getting a 2.5% increase in my Social Security this year. She said, things are looking up. She says, my property taxes are going up. Yeah, I do live in Salisbury, so I have Salisbury and Wicomico. So that's where I'm at on this Horizon and the Ross Building. Why should these be given to developers who's going to sell or rent their properties at market price, but the rest of Wicomico County citizens are going to be paying higher taxes because of their assessments? So, thank you, Mr. Cannon. That's all I have.
Any other council comments?
I just want to thank everybody for coming out, and I believe 2 weeks from today is election day, right?
Close.
3, yeah. So I think we're all aware of the issues on the table. I continue to encourage everybody to check their facts, and you will not likely find much factual information on social media. Do some digging, do the research, county website, Google. lot of credible information out there on both sides, so check your facts. A lot of misinformation is floating around out there, and that's unfortunate, but it's the way it is. And again, thank everybody for coming out on this beautiful day.
Shane? I'm good. Good. Okay. Under presidential comments, I haven't made a lot of comments in reference to question A. I support question A, of course. But I haven't made a lot of comments. I don't want this to even have the appearance of being a personal thing, because it's not a personal thing. This is about, as was stated by Mr. Campbell, it's a structural issue, which is my concern, I think, which is the council's concern and many citizens. But I have a few comments, a couple hard and unfortunate truths, I guess, but I think it's relevant to try to get this point across to the citizens of Wicomico County. There's very limited resources they have, I think, at this time to understand the particulars of these issues in reference to the question A. But come November, each of us in Wicomico County, we have a very important decision to make in regard to the structure of our form of government, whether we're going to continue with an executive form of government or whether we may revert back to the councilmanic form of government with the county administrator. The council put this on the ballot because many members of the public felt that it was necessary that we reconsider where we are today and recognize maybe what we've experienced over these past 18 years with the current form of government. We've had about $10 million is what it's cost us for this experiment over the last 18 years, and we have to ask ourselves, what have we seen? What have we accomplished with this $10 million? I probably, if I'm not mistaken, it was a while back, but I probably supported this initially back in 2004 because I figured, well, let's see how this works. In retrospect, however, having spent most of the last several years on the actual front line of this particular form of government, I don't believe it was the best decision for Wicomico County. In a recent forum that was mentioned earlier, it was discussed, of course, and there were a couple of concerns I had. One of them was the fact that there was a lot of talk about how the executive was just one phone call away from the governor, and the executive, could develop wonderful relationships with the governor, something that the councilmanic form of government couldn't do. That couldn't be further from the truth. I've been in the governor's office before. I know other councils have worked very well with the government agencies. But it also led me to believe that, okay, well, everyone wants to talk about how great this relationship could be. And my question was, well, what happens if it turns out that your governor is just not so fond of your executive? Because that also has been a reality. You have to wonder what happens to a particular county if that particular relationship is not a good relationship. I know that when we go to the Maryland Association of Counties, we go every 2 times a year, and I constantly hear from people who I consider to be very strong professionals in the government business who ask me, John, what is happening in Wicomico County? What is going on down there? And we laugh about it a little bit because we recognize that it is the way it is, and we have to persevere and try to make it happen. But that is what I've witnessed as to what we've experienced. Another individual said, well, management, we can go straight to the executive to get our answer. We don't have to wait 2 weeks to talk to a council. We can go straight to that executive and we can get everything resolved. My thought about that is, what happens when you go to that executive and that particular executive is not interested or concerned about your issues, the project that you may have been working on for an extended period of time? You're stuck. And that's the problem, in my opinion, with the structure. You have a council that, we may only meet twice a week, but we would also have a council administrator that operated day to day to address all these issues immediately and had to report to 7-member council. Not only that, but the last time I looked, we were in the 21st century, and each and every one of us has cell phones. So there you have 7 phone calls that you can make, not one, if you have a concern about something that you want to address. So I think you need to take that in consideration. That, to me, is a structural issue. I would also have to say that, we have to ask ourselves, are we operating as efficiently and as productively as we could, and are we operating as transparently as we could in reference to employee concerns as well, their projects, their initiatives? What is actually happening what's happening when you see employees who unfortunately can be subject to the proclivities of one individual. How effective are we when employees don't feel welcome by the executive? And these are realities. These are realities that we've experienced over the years. Not only by the executive independently, but what about the authority figures who have been put in place by the executive, maybe the department heads or administration, who don't really get along with these employees. Something I've experienced that I never thought I would experience is longtime employees coming to my office, actually coming to my personal office, very upset, crying because they have a very unfortunate set of circumstances in their employment with Wicomico County. These are long-term employment. Actually having a doctor's note stating that the doctor has told them and has diagnosed and said, you know, you're working in a hostile work environment. I hope you know that. That's how we diagnose your concerns. And I think, you know, we need to give you a note to take a couple of weeks off. So here's the problem. You turn in a note that you need to take a couple of weeks off because you've been operating in a hostile work environment. This person's scared to death. They turn in that note, they feel like there's going to be more hostility, or they could possibly lose their job. Now, that's a problem. And these are realities. These are really harsh realities that we've been facing over the years with the executive form of government. I don't think it's efficient, and more often than not, it is not a transparent form of government. We also, I think, have witnessed issues and concerns and matters that don't get addressed either. When you have issues with employees in this form of government, something goes wrong, an appointment that was made to a particular person of authority, and it goes really bad. I found out that through the executive form of government, the wagons get circled. I think there's more of an effort to sort of protect their interest as opposed to possibly address that problem. But the council, we've witnessed this. And unfortunately, the council has little oversight because with this form of government, we can't address it as we would like to do. It's outside of our purview to address these type of issues. We've been reprimanded before and accused of overstepping because we were trying to correct issues and concerns we found with management and with employees. I would say one other issue that also concerns me is, let's say you have a citizen who calls, and this happens a lot. We'll say, hey, you know, John, there's a road over here, and, you know, there's a problem with it, and, you know, we need some work done to it. Or there could be some other type of an issue that a single citizen has. We found out that we're subjected to having to tell these individuals, as their elected representatives in this form of government, we're subjected to having to tell this person, you have to talk to the executive branch. We're not allowed to call a department head and say, you know, you have a problem with this. We can't do that. It's considered overstepping our boundaries. So you have to ask yourself, how fair is that to the individual? What happens if this individual just doesn't happen to be in the good graces of that particular administrative official? They're stuck. So I have to ask you again, how fair and how efficient is that of our local government? And these aren't just council concerns with the executive's office in particular. These are concerns we feel the public should have in regard to this current form of government. There are difficulties, but these are difficulties I don't think you can experience with a 7-member council, because you have 7 members who have to act, and we have to act in collaboration with each other. And we also have to act in public. So if you have a problem with a road, it's going to come right here to this table for the most part. Or any one of the members here will call that department and say, we can take care of your problem. I'll call them right away and get it resolved. There are others who say, well, you know, John, we have a form of government where there's a president in the White House. We have a governor in Annapolis. Why not an executive in Wicomico County? I think the real answer to that is very, very simple. It's just not the same. The government on a local level, on a county level especially, is much more personal, and it requires much more collaboration one-on-one. And I believe you get that with a councilmanic form of government. Whether it's with direct oversight of all the employees or the public in general, it's often described as being where the rubber meets the road. And I think in that type of circumstances, you have to have a responsive government. You have to have individuals who have to do their job. They have to address those issues. You don't circle the wagons. And I say let's not lose sight, however, of the fact that we're also fortunate in this regard that we can correct it. We can correct where we are today. We can do that at the polls in November. We can correct it to a proven form of government. Again, it's about the structure, not about the personalities. We're in the 18th year, and we have to ask ourselves, where have we gotten? 7-member council with a council administrator. Some of the greatest successes we've experienced in Wicomico County have been the councilmanic form of government. They say that a 7-member council is inactive, doesn't work, only works 2 days a month. But don't forget, 7-member councils have given us Shorebird Stadium. They've given us a new civic center. They've given us the Henry Parker Sports Complex, the second largest airport in the state of Maryland. A 7-member council has given us strong law enforcement and fire department presence throughout the county for many, many, many years, all built on the back of a councilmanic form of government. A 7-member council has to do all its work in collaboration at this table in front of the public. That's called true transparency, not in the seclusion of a third-floor office. Budgets are decided by consensus of 7, not by personal privileges or favors of just 1. And management of staff is done so by the balance and the consensus of a 7-member group of officials, together with a hired professional administrator for oversight. Not by the unilateral oversight subject to the slightest whim or predilections or temperament of just one individual. Keep in mind one other issue as well when you go to the polls, possibly the most important. In the past, with the councilmanic form of government, I don't ever recall this degree of unhealthy, toxic character assassinations on PAC 14 shows, or Facebook posts, fabricated legal battles, or social media hysteria to which the citizens of Wicomico County have been subjected to over the past several years. I didn't anticipate it when I signed on for this job. I know I certainly didn't campaign for this type of structure, but we have that. That's what we're witnessing today. It simply isn't the best interest in good governance, nor the county as a whole, to be doing what we're doing today. So I share this very long-winded discussion with you because I certainly don't believe we're currently operating under the most efficient, cost-effective, or transparent form of government. And it's really, really that simple. But again, we do have another option, a proven course for responsible government. And I encourage each of you to choose wisely in November. So thank you very much. Thank you. At this time, I entertain a motion to adjourn. I would like to remind the public that we will reconvene in legislative session at 2:30 to address the bond award resolution. I entertain a motion to adjourn from council.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
First item on the open work session is an update from Talkie Communications. We're glad to have you here today.
Here's a copy of that.
All right, thank you.
Good job, John.
Well, thank you for having us today. Again, I'm Andrew Zematia. This is Andre. I know people get us mixed up sometimes. And this is Gary. He took over for Mike as the foreman in the area for the build.
How are you guys?
Good, doing well. Could you do us a favor, just for the public's information, give us them a bit of an overview of when you started, what your mandate was, and exactly the monies that have been involved and what your progress has been?
Sure. Yeah. So we applied for a grant for the state of Maryland called the Infrastructure Grant. It was a $10 million grant from the state of Maryland with no matching funds from the county. We are doing the matching funds in-house. We are building out about 100 miles of fiber optics in the Wicomico area, which is showing the yellow highlighted areas on the map. Right now, we have completed 80 miles or under construction 80 miles of fiber optics in the county, so we have about 20 miles left. We are currently passing almost 2,000 homes in the county, and we're on the last stretch. We should be finished in 2025, and then we will be building out in other areas in the county on our own dime, that's not part of the grant. Do you have anything else? Do you want to go over any of the bills?
Yeah, I can. I'm Gary Rife Jr. I'm the manager for Wicomico County Construction down here. So currently, near the Pittsville area, south of 50, we have a good bit of construction that's completed as we work our way south and east towards the Worcester County line. And then north of Pittsville, going towards the Delaware line, we're building out, also working east towards the Worcester County line on the east side of Wicomico County. So the entire east and southeastern side of Wicomico County should be built out by the end of 2025. We're hoping to expand west as well towards Salisbury. That's the hope. But we're focused on getting that eastern and rural area that the grants cover first.
So we're planning on tying together, so the footprint, if you look at the map, it's in pretty much 3 different groups. The goal is, once we fulfill the commitment to the grant, is to continue overbuilding, tie in all the sections, and we'll have redundant paths to all our equipment. Right now, we are using, with Maryland Broadband to help us get to jumping from point to point. And what we're going to do is come back and build a secondary pathway, so this way we have a redundancy, build in more redundancies. So Fruitland will then connect to Pittsville, which then will connect to other counties as well. So all the construction in the green from Pittsville down and Fruitland is all the green sections is active and lit. The section north is the conduit is done. We're pulling fiber. So we're literally everything in green from Pittsville up is just needs to be spliced and the fiber pulled. So we're going to have that complete section active, hopefully in the next, by Christmas time is what we're planning on, depending on the weather and what happens, but that is the goal. So everything in green will be completed by end of year, dark green. The yellowish green is the rest of the map that we haven't built already, and we're going to continue building out. So I know Gary said end of next year. It's probably going to be the middle of next year that this project is going to be fully completed.
And we also have been working with the county. There's another grant that Maryland has out right now. It's a $1.2 million grant for long driveways for customers that have really long driveways or difficult to reach areas. Right now, we've been working with the county to try to submit some applications to be able to get to expand areas that have no internet access, but they still need it. That's outside the grant areas. So we're hoping we get some information on that pretty soon.
Any questions?
I thought the long driveway thing wasn't an issue anyway. When you came before, I thought you were going to run up any driveway for whatever length.
Yeah, that's the name of the grant. The long driveway, difficult to reach. That's the name of the grant.
Yeah, but I thought when you came before.
But it's more than just driveways. It's, for instance, if you have an area that is 2,000, 3,000 feet away, at least in Queen Anne's County.
Okay, down the road, in other words.
Yeah, so it basically, it's not a driveway. Again, my knowledge of Queen Anne's County, he's doing this county. What the long driveway grant is designed for is if you have an extended reach, maybe we're about 2,000 feet away from that house. It's not a driveway, it's a back block.
It's more of an expansion grant, but they call it long driveway grant.
What's considered a long driveway, 1,000 foot, 500 foot, 800 foot? Or? From
my understanding from the grant, the first 300 feet is the ISP, and then the rest would be a 50-50 match, or 75-25% match.
So if somebody has 1,000 foot driveway right now, and they want to hook up, and you're ready to hook them up,
we would do it for free.
You would.
$99.
Well, it's $99.
Yeah, nice.
I'm sorry. But yeah, so the grant, the $1.2 million grant that every county has pretty much received, it's really for an expansion. So if the grant area stops here and someone's
all right.
half mile down the street, or it would be considered a difficult to reach location.
So that's what you explained before about the $99 and you, okay.
Correct. And the grant, the $1.2 million grant is only for areas that do not already have grants. So everything within our grant carry area will automatically be included for, we're already going to do it anyway. So the new grant is only for areas that are outside the grant area.
And that's not have a grant in any other provider. So it's totally grant-free and service. So if you have wired internet, faster than DSL. DSL's wired, but it's very slow. So that's what the grant's for. So there is no overlap. So you can't get a grant here and then get a grant on top of that grant.
Okay. What, first of all, you've been working in my neighborhood and district and not received any complaints. The only calls I've had is, what's the boxes? What are they doing? So I have to explain to them, this is internet service that's coming your way. And what percentage have you had hook up already that's available to hook up?
I don't have that number on hand, but it's usually 30 to 50% within the first year, and then after the first year, it goes up to about 80%.
So up to about 80. Okay.
And it depends on
each area is different. If an area has no internet, then you get a higher take rate. I noticed that some of the people underneath the Pittsville area, they have Starlink. They spend a lot of money on it. Even though Starlink is more expensive per month, someone spends $300 to $500 on a satellite dish, even though it's not a better product. Some people are resistant to get rid of something they just spent all that money on because they want to try to get their reimbursement back from it. But we've seen a couple people that didn't go with us because they had other alternatives. But we know they will come $40 a month cheaper than the satellite.
And we just launched television service in select counties. We're working with your county now to get a franchise agreement. So we have television, cellular services, home phone, and fiber optic internet. So we're able to provide the customers with a triple play or quadruple play.
What about overlap with other, like Comcast? Are you going to be at any point overlapping services with those?
We do plan on overbuilding. We don't have a problem with overbuilding. Our objective would be to cover the entire county in time, but right now we're focused on the no-served because they need it the most. But as soon as we are done with our commitment, then we will be continuing to overbuild in areas like Fruitland, possibly Salisbury, depending on the situation in Salisbury, and other areas. There's really very low return on investment in areas like the very rural areas, so you have to do some no-served areas, and then you have to do some overpopulated areas to actually make it worth our while.
So we do have interest in Salisbury since it's the heaviest. We need to reach out to the town and see what kind of permission. I know when we did some drill work around here, it was very difficult. So that is a desire for us. Like Fruitland has a lot of homes. I know a lot of stuff around Pittsville, the town. We do have desires to overbuild that because there's simply no customers where we're actually building.
You don't do any overhead?
No, we prefer to do 100% underground. We only would do overhead if there's absolutely no option. This way, if a storm happens, like was in Florida, we wouldn't have any problems.
That's all I have right now.
Sure.
Thanks.
The understanding that I had when this project all began, of course, was that you were going to address the underserved and unserved areas, primarily on the east side of Wicomico County, correct?
Yes.
Right. So is that what we're going to see fully accomplished at the end of 2025, whereas anybody on the east side of Wicomico County is not going to have an issue as far as access?
Anyone in the yellow polygons on this map will have service when the project is completed.
So if they're outside of the yellow, if they're right outside the yellow, we can expand it, we will. We're not saying, no, this is the grant, we're not doing anything extra. Generally what we do is if there's an area that can be done with minor equipment, not major drills, we'll expand our fiber to that house. Because obviously the interest is with us to getting the customers to be hooked up. But if it's outside the yellow, it's not a commitment that we've made with this particular grant.
And I'm not sure if you're familiar, but there is a BEAD infrastructure grant, the Biden infrastructure grant that's $41 billion. That should be coming out in 2025. We intend to apply for that as well. The hardest task that we have is to find the areas that don't have internet. So we have to work with the IT department and the FCC maps to identify those. But we do intend to apply if there is area to be served.
Curious as to how things sort of maybe possibly changed, because I was under the impression this would address all the issues on the east side of Wicomico County. I'm not sure in your RFP or whatever it was you presented for the grant, was this what you proposed to the state of Maryland when they gave you the money, that you were only going to be doing this particular
So
areas in this yellow
I believe the
quadrant?
county gave us the map.
Correct, yep.
We didn't give you guys the map, you gave it to us.
That was in collaboration, I guess, with the executive and Comcast maybe as
Yeah.
what they've decided were unserved areas?
I'm not entirely sure how it was identified.
Not either.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But we were provided, everyone that applied for the RFP was applied with shape files and KMZ files, and they said, these are the no-served areas. And then we all put the RFP in. We won half of what we put in. We applied for 2 applications for the state of Maryland, the east side and the west side. We did not get the west side. We got the east side. And then we reapplied again the following year, but did not win that. So what is in the yellow polygons is the areas that are our obligation for the state and the county.
So Maryland has a website that shows all the grants, and you can see which provider won what. There might be somebody else that won that, we're just not privy to it.
Yeah, this kind of took an unusual turn. Initially, it was all, part of the local autonomy where we were putting together, we were part of the formula to decide what was needed, where it would go, and exactly who we would choose. But then when there was a second round of funding, we found out third person, this council, I think our county government as a whole said, oh, it's been awarded to whomever, and it never came across, to my knowledge, it never came across this table at all. So the dynamics really changed as far as how the state chose to move forward with it.
We felt the same. It's across the board. Things have changed with the new administration.
Yeah.
Well, we can only hope for the best with this, and that the people who we've told you will have full service on the east side or the west side by the end of 2025, I hope that will come to fruition, and we won't have any issues or concerns that we have to
We
worry
do
about.
encourage anybody that doesn't have internet to sign up on our website so we know that they exist. So we might pass your house and someone might call you and say, hey, why don't I have an internet? Well, if you never signed up, we do door knockers, we do door flyers, we do radio ads, we do flyers in the mail. There's still people that we've sent probably 20 flyers to, and who's talking? Not
So-
good money spent.
So we always feel that if we pass a customer or we're close to a customer, we'll serve them.
yeah.
We're not, if someone is outside the polygon, we're going to do it. We're going to try our best to get it done. There's some other progress that we've made. Like we're so close to connecting Worcester County with Wicomico County, and the reason why that's important to us is because now we have the same network from both different counties, and you have redundancy. So our intention is to literally build the entire county over time. If we have grants, that's good. If we don't have grants, we'll get to it when we get to it. But if anybody wants service, they should sign up on our website, and then that tells us who needs service, and then we would investigate. We're like, oh, here's a little red dot on our map. What's that about? We'll zoom in. We're like, oh, there's no area. Nobody has internet here, because that's what we really do best. Is we serve customers that don't have internet.
An integral part of the grant also, I believe, was the awarding of the grant was the fact of what your costs were. Have you managed to keep your costs within what was originally proposed?
Yes, actually, we've found different suppliers. We are actually manufacturers of our own equipment now, our own supplies. So we make our own boxes, we make our own tracer, mule tape. So we've been able to cut out the distributor and cut cost a lot.
Excellent. Any other questions? Jeff?
Now that you guys are well into this, have you seen any workforce issues? And you just addressed the supply chain thing. That's cool. That's
So
good, you guys.
luckily, we have, our subcontractors have many people working for them. We have access to 21 drills. So when it comes to the contractors, we have no problems at all. They have ample amount of supplies. But we do like doing a lot of it in-house. We have 7 drills right now and 5 plows. I know it sounds like a lot, but we're doing a lot of work in a lot of different counties. So whatever we can't do in-house, we sub it out to subcontractors. So, but we are having problems finding our own employees, especially in this area.
Yeah, we're struggling all around, not just this county. We just simply cannot find anybody that wants to dig holes. And that's a concern to us. We bought a building in Snow Hill. that we want to create a local call center, because we're trying to keep everything as local as possible. And there's just nobody. I mean, I'm sure there's people there. We can't seem to reach them. We have Indeed. We literally go to, different businesses and hands out flyers. But the labor force is difficult for the construction aspect. But right now,
But we subsidize it with contractors.
we have to do with contractors.
It'd be great if you guys opened a call center in Wicomico County, because I know we've got buildings here, too.
So what we do is we work with the county. It's not out of the question. What we do is we try to look for some abandoned property that the county no longer uses, and we try to work a deal out to purchase that product. And that's what we did in Snow Hill. It was basically an abandoned building. It's not
a county-owned building they
the
sold to us.
It's not quite habitable yet. I wouldn't go in there without a gas mask. But it's still there, and the intentions is we're gonna do another central office there, and then clean up the building and looking for some rehab grants and try to do training out of the building as well, so.
On a good day, how many feet do you drill?
So.
Junior would be best.
Let Junior talk.
Yeah, okay. I'd say, so on a good day, a normal crew can do anywhere between 12 and 1,500 feet with the drill. But the plows, our guys that are plowing with a crew of 3 or 4 can do anywhere from 3,500 to well over a mile worth of pipe.
Our record is like 8,500 feet in one day with the plow. No,
Two people.
But that was one time.
Very
It was
nice.
pure open, flat land, nothing in the ground.
But altogether, when you have 3 or 4 crews running, you're doing well over 2 or 3 miles a day. When things obviously go well, when the weather's good, and everything goes exactly right, so.
Yeah, so what slows us down is the slow reimbursements. When a contractor does work, the rules are changing on the fly on us. So we'll do the job and we wait for the reimbursements.
He's referring to the Office of Statewide Broadband. There was a shift of management, so it took a little bit of time to get on the same page with the new team.
We have to readjust to their rules, but we need to know first before the rules change, not afterwards. So that slows down progress because the contractors don't want to wait 60, 90 days to get paid. And that's what's happening now.
People work better when they get paid.
We all do.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, we do appreciate you coming back and give us an update. It's been a while, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll reschedule something, maybe summer of '25 and see how everything's.
Hopefully we'll be done. Our internal goal is mid-year. And
Okay.
And you can see like in Fruitland, we actually expanded the backbone. There's a lot to do extra. Just because once we're done this doesn't mean we're done. It just means that we're done this commitment. And then now we can go over and get the more populated areas.
We plan on covering the entire county. We'd like to do that in every county because it's a lot easier when someone calls and says, "Do you have service here?" We're like, "What county you're in?" "Oh, yeah."
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item on the agenda, we have the Greater Salisbury Committee, a report on housing needs in Wicomico County. Dunn and Mr. McCain.
Mr. President, members of the council, thanks for having us today. For the record, I'm Mike Dunn, the president and CEO of the Greater Salisbury Committee.
And I'm Bill McCain, a member and past chair of the Greater Salisbury Committee, and I was the chair of the Housing Task Force that put together the white paper.
And past council member, past
And
the council, past
past
president of the city council over here, right?
Yeah, past council member, yeah. I've been on that side of the table.
Yeah. So thank you all for the opportunity to present this morning. We really appreciate it. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't kind of start in a very brief way on why we're here and the mission of the Greater Salisbury Committee, right? Since 1967. We look at the community, we look at the challenges, what are the opportunities, what are the problems, and then when appropriate, we put together work groups like this to try and, inform and educate and just try and see where the community needs to be. It is clear that housing, as stated in this report, housing according to the Fed, and they have been here twice in the last 5 or 6 months. Housing is the number one challenge outside, of course, day-to-day interest rates. It's the number one thing that they look at the country as a challenge, and we all know that. I would ask, I know there was a comment earlier, in our housing task force, the last page, is who the members of it are. And so it was not just Greater Salisbury Committee members. These are subject matter experts in housing. Yes, they're going to be realtors, developers, investors, but they are subject matter experts, and so that's what we put together. And before I hand it over to the chair, I will just simply say that in a similar vein, as you all know, because you've done a nice job in incorporating some of the recommendations of our water and sewer task force. And we brought to the county, and as I have said publicly, and I know each of you have heard me say this publicly, I commend again the Wicomico County government, the county council, for your work in our critical water and sewer challenges, i.e. our failing septic systems that we know are a challenge in our county. And you have put not just your commitment, but you put finances toward it. The Parsonsburg, Pittsburgh area, the Hebron, Sharptown, Mardella area, the city of Salisbury area. So this is a continuation. This task force is really a continuation of that work of our water and sewer task force, which is, again, just to sort of identify for our government entities and our community at large the challenges that are out there. And then lastly, we will also, we're presenting this same white paper to our friends at the City of Salisbury and their City Council, and upcoming also to our friends in Delmar and Fruitland, again, just to get the word out, and their town councils will be presenting there as well. And so with that, I will turn things over to our chair, and when we go looking for, and the Greater Salisbury Committee tries to set up these kind of task forces in our chair, we do try to find the subject matter expert if we can. And I'm not sure anybody understands real estate and the housing market more than Bill McCain. So we're honored to have Bill as our chair. And with that, I will kind of turn things over to him. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Mike. Just to summarize, I guess, some of the basics of the white paper, our county, there was a time, most of our history, particularly through the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, we were building 400, 500, 600 homes a year. That was pretty routine. And, a lot of things changed, state regulations, septic regulations, et cetera. But then we had the housing crisis that occurred. And from that point on, we have never actually managed to recover in terms of building homes. We've only been building around 150 homes or so a year, and we're currently up around about 200 or so now. There was a point we were down to 80 back in 2016 in the whole county, a county of 105,000 people. So, but we've been in this, I guess I call it a drought of building homes for over a decade. And it's affected our county. People leave our county. One of the main reasons they leave is actually housing, just the lack of choices, and also to make, I guess, a point too to address a comment that was made earlier, about this paper is just a comparison to Sussex County. Absolutely not. There's one paragraph that talks about what goes on in neighboring counties, which is we need to look at neighboring counties, but also the last sentence of that paragraph says, in our task force, emphasize the fact we are not trying to be like Sussex County. We're not trying to grow like Sussex County. We say that right in the white paper. We're simply trying to meet the needs of the citizens of Wicomico County in terms of what they're looking for in terms of housing. So the white paper presents a lot of data. There's also almost a page and a half of examples of types of incentives that, from a governmental perspective, can be done. And these incentives are not all, but the majority are not tax-type incentives. They're everything from marketing plans to hiring people in your planning department to help shepherd the development process, to make it easier, to make the environment more friendly. There's trust funds that can be established where first-time home buyers are given loans, but then that gets paid back to the county whenever they sell the property or refinance the property. So like I say, there's lots of models out there to follow. And, this is, this isn't unique just to Wicomico. This is a nationwide issue, a housing shortage. It's a state of Maryland issue, and it's a Wicomico County issue. But the good thing is there are lots of models to follow. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And the white paper, like I say, gives us some examples of what other communities are doing. And so with that said, we'll entertain any questions that all of you may have.
And if I may, this paper addresses the Salisbury-Wicomico real estate market. That encompasses everything. And so one of the things that we know, and this paper talks about, and Bill mentioned it, there are so many people right now, and we all know them. When a good home comes on the market, in any of our really desirable areas, because inventory is so low, there are going to be multiple people bidding on that really one good property. And when only one of those folks can ultimately purchase that property, they have to go back and start over again. So one of the things that this talks about, most especially, is that we need new neighborhoods, right? And these new neighborhoods, as President Cannon alluded to earlier, they're going to be reliant not on septic tanks and wells. They're going to be reliant on hookups to existing municipal pipes, if you will. We need pipes in Wicomico County. And the real estate market is going to do better when we have more pipes. And again, that's a very complicated thing. But the thing that we want to really just stress is that this is not intended to change the character of Salisbury or Wicomico County. It's simply acknowledging, as Bill said, we have not been building homes in the Salisbury-Wicomico real estate market, by and large, since the Great Recession. And the national and regional home buyers are all around us. And in order for us to capture more of the working people who come into Salisbury and Wicomico County to work every day and keep them here instead of going to, Millsboro and West Ocean City and Berlin and Ocean Pines and Cambridge, we've got to provide more inventory. So with that, certainly, and I thank Ms. Hurley for getting the copies of the white paper to everyone in advance, and certainly take any questions that you might have.
And one quick comment too is this white paper, this is in the housing shortage we're addressing. It's housing, and I'm saying that, and my point of that is it's not about just affordable housing. It's housing at all levels. It doesn't matter what level we're talking about. We've had a lack of it at all levels of the economic gamut.
So you bring up affordable housing. That phrase really gets under my skin because, and not because you brought it up, don't get me wrong, I'm sorry.
Right.
The state, regulations, sprinklers and everything. What's that added on to the cost of a house? EV wires now. You got to wire a house up. If you got a driveway, you got to wire a house up to charge an electric car, whether you have an electric car or not. The thing where you put the thing on the door to make sure that the house is tight. All that stuff. Affordable housing, where does it come from? Where do you get it at? Because regulations have driven the cost of housing up.
And-
Somebody can't go out and just build a 1,200 square foot bungalow now. They can't do it because of everything else that goes with it.
Well, they can do it, but it's going to cost.
Well, yeah, it's going to be,
that's
out of
right.
reach. So and getting a septic, I listened to this stuff today from this guy, at our table talking about getting these septics approved. I don't know whether all that's correct or not. From what I hear from people, it's a multi-year task to try to get a septic approved. So that's affordable housing, I think, is a phrase that's probably long gone.
Well,
Anyway.
and you will hardly see that term in this white paper.
Yeah.
They say, because we're talking about housing.
Yeah.
And Mr. Holloway, to that point, we spoke to some regional builders during our housing task force, and one of them from a company that we all know, they said to us literally the second they come across the Maryland line, and that's really from Sussex County here, it's red flag territory. And it's many of the things that you just mentioned, that there are the burden to build.
Taxes, Mike.
Pardon me?
Taxes.
Taxes
is the main reason.
is one of them,
Yeah,
understood.
that's the main reason. I mean, I had customers, that lived in the southern Delaware, eastern southern Delaware area, and, moved here from other areas, and they looked at southern Delaware and they said, why would I move to Wicomico County with the taxes as high as they are?
We're talking about
Worcester's
building.
a little higher, and then
Yep.
Sussex are
Yep.
a little lower, and
Yep.
Sussex a little lower than that. So.
Yep. Building new housing, the point is that the regulations and things that you were talking about, it's a red flag to come into Maryland, not just Salisbury and the Wicomico market, just when they come across the state line.
Jeff, I saw you had a question.
Joe asked it.
Oh,
I
yeah,
was going to
sure.
ask
Okay.
about the cost of the sprinkler systems and the EV wiring and things we didn't have to deal with 20 years ago, just because we didn't have to deal with them.
And that's, and that's one of the challenges. That's one reason, the white paper talks about, we have to come up with innovative ideas to try to combat that because, right, it's costly, but the demand exists. So you have to find that everybody's trying to attract the developers and realtors to their communities because they need people to build homes. And so you've got to compete in that world and find ways to bring those people to you. And, like I say, we make some, over a dozen examples that people in the task force were familiar with. But for every one of those, there's lots more. And like I said, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's lots of models you can look at. There are things that people are doing that's helping bring these developers and builders to your community.
Where's the state at now or whatever on package systems? I know we discussed that back when you were on the council. Is that something that's still an option?
Not in, I know we can't do that in our county. They're not going to allow us to do that, in our county, but as
Howard does it all the time.
right, and Sussex, right, they can do that in Sussex, and that's one of the different. What are my annual presentation? I know some of you have attended. I've always said a couple years ago, I said the three most important things in real estate. Most people say location, location, location. I said no, it's sewer, 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 but it's having sewer, having public sewer.
Package systems aren't allowed in the state anymore.
I don't know about if in unique circumstances if they allow it or not. I can't answer that.
Similar to what was proposed to us back when you were on the council at some of the neighborhoods.
Right. To my knowledge, we still can't do that.
I think it's an interesting set of, and I appreciate you taking the time, and Bill, to do this and help Michael with this initiative. It's a good report. I like the fact that you're talking about trying to streamline. I know that was a really huge emphasis with the city a few years ago because people were complaining that it wasn't a streamlined process, and that's really good. And the marketing plan, I think, also is good. I guess the question really comes down to where are we in the planning stage going to define the difference between what we feel is some type of funding subsidies as opposed to maybe just addressing infrastructure issues as we're trying to do with the water and sewer master plan. Because I hear, affordable housing, immediately think, okay, well, the government needs to dole out a ton of cash to put a bunch of houses there so people can afford them. Is that what we're looking at? Are we looking at changing the dynamics of the infrastructure to make to create an environment for development?
Yeah, I think it's more the latter. And Mike said this earlier. We had the task force on water and sewer, and this is sort of migrated into this. The two are connected. So obviously having the infrastructure creates a better environment for development. So but that's a long process. So anything that expedites that process is going to help your housing situation.
Well, Bill, you say that, but the state argues differently because they say if we do water and sewer, it's not supposed to be about growth.
Well, that's correct. It's right. It's a health.
Yeah, it's
a health need, a health issue, but at the same time, the infill development, the expanding upon the municipalities' existing systems, which is all part of that plan, building that in so we get more infill development. And, those are somewhat, I hate to use the term low-hanging fruit, but they're simpler to do. And in the short run, those kind of things can be done.
Yeah, I think the state has really put us, as was suggested earlier, the state's really put us in a position where it's not going to happen in the county. It has to go through
That's right.
cooperation with
And
municipalities.
to be clear, Joe, you're spot on that we're really talking about two different things. We're talking about replacement of septic systems and the challenges there. That's over here. Over here, when we talk about new housing supply, that new housing supply is supply within the growth area near municipal hookups. And so the state would be all encouraging of tapping into existing municipal water and sewer lines for new growth. For replacement growth, they don't look at the word growth when they're looking at replacement of septic. That's to fix the problem. Over here, it's to create new opportunity.
You know how many homes are actually approved to be, or I won't say homes, I'll say dwelling units are actually approved right now in Wicomico County?
Well,
7,000 or 5,000, something like that, through the planning and zoning department.
Well, those
preliminaries and approved.
Well, those aren't homes approved. Those are site. I think your question is site approvals.
Some of them's apartments, some of them's townhouses.
Right.
I mean,
Very few of them are single-family residents.
It's multifamily in the city.
300 and some out off Brown Road, I think, in one area.
Right. Yeah, but but the number of single family, in fact, we have the city of Salisbury is an example. It's actually it's opposite of the national averages in terms of ownership versus rental. It's almost like 70% rental. The national average is like 70% home ownership.
Yeah.
So that's quite a disparity, but we continue to get more, even more multifamily projects, which is just meeting the need of the local community.
Have we ever thought about maybe looking at how we may acclimate Tidewater into Wicomico County? Isn't that really one of the driving forces in Sussex, that the fact that they have that water access? Because you don't have to worry as much about your septic if you have the water piped in and not welled.
Well, the county has their own public, water and sewer as well, in addition to the municipalities. So you've got this, you've got a combination of all of the above, that kind of makes that work. They have, separate systems for some of the larger projects, but you also have county systems as well, in addition to all the, I think it's over 20 different municipalities, and some of these are almost interconnected nowadays because, they've expanded so far.
So might we take that into consideration, maybe dovetail that and this work here with the water and sewer master plan that we're trying to develop now?
It actually sort of does. Yeah. I mean, it's talked about in here. Yeah. So like I said, they do dovetail into each other.
And we're going to, go ahead, excuse me, Shane.
Yeah, please.
What did you say rent versus own, what the percentage is?
Right.
Here?
In the city of Salisbury, over 70% of the housing stock is currently rental housing.
I think that's a county number too. It's like 63.
Right. It skews
Yeah.
So it skews the whole county as well, as a result.
It is just the opposite of the national.
Right, but that's almost opposite of what you see nationally.
So when I hear about development, I hear about growth, building places. Don't you think the problem here is why we have 70% rent? It's because people can't afford to buy? It seems like to me, ever since I was younger, we've lost a lot of big paying jobs here in Wicomico County. And to me, it seems like we're putting the cart before the horse. We should be doing things to bring industry here, to bring big paying jobs here. Then we can get that rent to own ratio down and people can afford housing.
Well, you're correct from the standpoint, we should be doing both. I mean, because people need the housing. You know, if you bring businesses here, they need housing. And, but a lot of the reason we have such a high percentage of rental housing is we have a very aged housing stock. You know, our housing stock is old. And, you know, most of our homes were built, you know, our biggest heyday in terms of development were the 80s and 90s, and maybe even to a little bit into the early 2000s. Well, those homes are now 30, 40 plus years old. And, you know, we haven't been replacing that with newer housing stock, but we actually need to be doing both. I mean, yes, we need to be concentrating on the economics, which is another, you know, we'll do a separate white paper on that issue, but at the same time, you still need to be doing, I mean, we have demand here. You know, we were building 500 and 600 homes, and those homes were all selling. You know, those homes were selling. You know, and the homes that do get built sell. You know, the selling part is not a problem. It's a supply issue.
And Bill uses a phrase, pent-up demand. And so right now, I'll just use a neighborhood as example. They're exactly the same neighborhood. It's same developer. One is on Glen Avenue, just past Glen Avenue Elementary. The other's out on Johnson's Road. And these are brand new to-rent homes that are renting for $2,200 a month. If you and I drove through them, we would look and go, wow, that's a perfect starter home for someone to buy, but they were never offered as for sale. They were offered as rent. And so if you look at the supply that Joe's mentioning, the Here is Home, that was a program that the city of Salisbury did. Rents in these new luxury apartment complexes that are being built, they're north of $1,600 a month. So Bill talks about pent-up demand, which may not show up in market analysis, but there are many people who can afford a mortgage payment. Rates are, of course, coming down a little bit now. They're already right now paying $1,700, $1,800, $2,200 a month when they could, if they had an option of a new neighborhood with supply and modern amenities, they could move from that apartment into that home, free up and perhaps reduce those rates in those apartments. So this is, again, as Bill said, an economics white paper on this would be a different thing, but for certain, and again, ask around, because we did ask around to employers. There are simply not enough options for people who wish to buy the modern house in the modern neighborhood. We don't have that product to offer in Salisbury and Wicomico County. They've got plenty of that product to offer, 30 minutes away. And in order for us to be competitive and capture more personal income taxes here, we're not talking about property taxes, but if you and your family can't find any place to call home in Salisbury or Wicomico, there's plenty of new neighborhood options less than 30 minutes from where we are. And so we've got to attack that supply problem here. It's really as simple as that. The demand is there. We don't have the supply.
Appreciate that.
Of course.
The one bullet point you mentioned, which I would just say kind of concerns me a little bit, is the EDUs that you referenced in Somerset. That's quite a burden
And to be clear, as the chair, as Bill said, we've given you a laundry list of things that our work showed. This is what Somerset's doing, this is what Montgomery County is doing, et cetera. We are not suggesting by any stretch implement every one of these things.
Right.
We're simply saying, here's a laundry list of things that have been done successfully. Bill, I might ask in closing, and I know you guys are near lunchtime, can you talk briefly about your experiences with watching zoning departments and planning departments in some of these other areas versus what we see here, reactive versus proactive?
Well, I guess my comment would just be the nature of the business I'm in, because we serve the entire Delmarva Peninsula. I often find myself, I go to meetings just like this, but at all the other counties. So, it's, I spend a lot of time in these different counties in their council meetings, but it's pretty typical to see the planning folks at those meetings on a pretty regular basis, proposing. It could be a host of things they might be proposing, but they're always trying to come up with something innovative, or they're making changes, or, it's always your zoning codes or a guideline. So they're always changing with the times. Obviously, economic situations change, your county grows, so you have to make changes to keep addressing that. So, that's just, you see a lot of attention given from the planning departments, helping the councils, helping guide them through that process.
I know from your history, you don't allow studies to sit on the shelf. I know that for a fact. So we look forward to seeing how you want to choose to develop this further, and, keep us in touch with maybe what we can address as a council.
Very much appreciate the opportunity today.
Yeah, no, thank you. Like I said, the fact we're having a conversation,
Yeah, right.
that's a good thing.
Yes.
So,
And we appreciate you asking to come before us so that we had the opportunity to review it.
Great.
Thank you very
all
much, John.
very much. Thank you.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Going to break for lunch. We have about 20 minutes, a little more than 20 minutes. So we're going to take about a 20-minute recess. Thank you. We're reconvening the legislative session for the Wicomico County Council for October 15th, 2024, legislative session 2024-23. The first item on the agenda is resolution number 140-2024, the bond award resolution. Entertain a motion from council to approve resolution 140-2024.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Olin, thank you.
Hi, Pam Olin, Finance Director, and Jennifer Derrickson with Davenport, our financial advisor. So this morning at 10:30, our bids closed for our bonds. We had 10 bidders this year. That's double last year's number of bids. We had 5 last year. Just to refresh your memory, last year we got an interest rate of 4.32 for our tax-exempt borrowing. This year, the winner is TD Securities, which is a name that you probably would recognize from the market, and it's at 3.54. And the range of all 10 bidders was between the 3.54 and the 3.66. So we got lower than last year by about 0.8. We had double the number of bidders, and everybody viewed us all in a really, really tight range. So we're requesting council accept this resolution and award our bonds to TD Securities. If council awards, we will be closing on the 29th of October.
That's a phenomenal rate. We had the Board of Education here. Should we double the bond while we're here? Show of hands.
Sorry, we'd have to start all over with all of our legislation. So we don't have that kind of
Sorry, guys.
space.
We tried. We really.
So we're asking for council to adopt this resolution.
Okay. Any questions from council? All those in favor of resolution 140, 2024, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution 140, 2024 passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
meeting you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Sorry, Laura. Well, they can have one for their record. I explained the numbers. Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Did you have stuff prepared, Laura, to state before we went into it? No, for the what we just passed.
I just have copies of the numbers.
I didn't know if you were going to publicly read anything that we missed. Okay, good, great. Next item on the open agenda, open work session, we're having our quarterly work session with the Board of Education.
Mr. President, you do need to adjourn from legislative session.
Yeah, thank you. Entertained motion to adjourn from legislative session. Second. Second. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
I have it on a flash drive, too. Yeah. Do you want to go ahead? Yeah.
The same message that I got when you sent it to me.
Just drive it off the
Flash
drive.
Okay, I think we're ready.
Sure, thank you. Will we be able to get on the main screen here when we need it?
I think Xavier usually does.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, you want me to tell him?
Yeah, if he wants to put that up. Yeah, there, we got it. We have it. We have it. We have it. Okay.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much. We appreciate being here for our quarterly work session. Also appreciate the agenda items. They were very much in alignment with the items that we wanted to bring to your attention as well, so that worked out very well. This afternoon, we're going to be talking about CIP projects, also talking about the increase in our multilingual learner population and enrollment here in Wicomico County, families in transition or our FIT students, as well as shared residencies, a little bit about school safety, SROs, and campus patrols, and how all of that's working and meshing together. And then also, we have a presentation regarding community schools. So thank you all very much for this opportunity. With that, I can turn it over to Dr. Rager.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. We're happy to be here. You received a copy of our capital improvement plan last month. And today we want to present some information for you regarding both the current FY26, the new CIP, as well as a little bit of recent past history on where Wicomico County Public Schools has been with our capital improvement plan. You've heard us talk a little bit before about using ESSER funds, and we'll share a little bit of information like that about that so the public's aware of some of the work that's been going on in Wicomico County Public Schools the last couple of years, beyond those big projects that everyone sees and are aware of, like Mardella and Fruitland Primary. So I'll turn it over to our Director of Planning and Construction, Lisa Ashby, and our Facilities Planner, Kayla Campbell.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon. You can turn that mic if you want it closer to you. There you go.
All right.
Watch the acronyms.
We'll do our
My
best.
reputation precedes me. So as Dr. Rager stated, we're here on behalf of Wicomico County Public School Leadership Team and the Board of Education to discuss the FY 2026 Capital Improvement Plan and Budget. Senior leadership and the board asked that we highlight where Wicomico County Public Schools has utilized other funding sources and cost-saving strategies that have saved the county government in capital funding over the past 5 years. Capital project closeouts resulted in $2.8 million in county savings through more streamlined project delivery methods, utility rebates, and grants, to name a few. You may recall WCPS was able to eliminate the FY 2025 CIP funding request from Mardella, as well as reduce the final county funding request in FY 2024 by $4.6 million due to more project-related items becoming eligible for state funding.
as well as some ESSER funding for an early equipment package for a total of $7.2 million in local savings. The board includes a list of canceled projects in the CIP each year when WCPS can execute projects utilizing other funding sources. Examples include HSFF, pass-through grants, ASP, and SSGP, which added up to $11.2 million. Wicomico County Public Schools devoted the largest amount of ESSER funding across the state of Maryland in capital projects. The 3 other jurisdictions that utilize ESSER funding for capital were at or significantly under $1.1 million. WCPS invested $40 million to accomplish very systemic projects that impacted 7 schools without any county funding. All of this resulted in a savings to the county of $61.2 million. Please note, several of these sources either no longer exist or are reaching the end of their life. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Campbell to highlight the board's overall FY 2026 CIP, which was submitted to the County Executive and Council earlier in September. We've also provided a copy of this presentation to Ms. Hurley so you can have access to the hyperlinks and can review the more detailed CIP documents and project updates noted moving forward. And for the public's reference, these same documents can be found on the Wicomico County Public School website at wicomicoschools.org under the Business and Operations section for planning and construction.
All right, good afternoon. The Wicomico County Public Schools Capital Improvement Program consists of 2 integral components. Part 1 is the Educational Facilities Master Plan, or EFMP, and Part 2 is the Capital Improvement Plan, or CIP. As Liesl noted, there are click here that provide icons to the complete documents, which are on Wicomico Schools website. We're going to review Part 2 in detail. The Capital Improvement Plan and budget includes FY 2025 approvals, FY 2026 project priorities, and a previous year recap. FY 2025 approvals included number 1 priority, Parkside High School roof replacement with the remaining state construction allocation, and priority number 2, Fruitland Primary replacement. The board appreciates the county government's one-time funding as well received for Glen Avenue sprinkler project. FY 2026 number 1 board priority is Fruitland Primary replacement, seeking construction funding. You can click here to review the complete design development presentation. To remain on schedule with the Fruitland Primary project and begin construction in the summer of 2025, this is a county and state funding cash flow. This avoids additional escalation costs, locks into 95% state cost share with potential add-ons, and allows bidding the project in spring of 2025. The board received a $2 million net zero grant from MEA to include solar on the project. With a quick comparison of the FY 25 CIP requests, you see the state share has increased while the county share and overall project cost has decreased, with a total of an $18.2 million savings. We're going to take...
This is where you can get excited for a moment. You like that.
Yeah.
We're going to take a closer look at the 8.2 and the 30.2 local share. The state and county split is not finalized until the Interagency Commission on School Construction, or the IAC, completes the funding form and locks Wicomico into its first-time construction funding. The $30.2 million county share is likely to decrease with IAC completion of the form and finalization of various add-ons noted here. The Interagency Commission on School Construction, IAC, reduced Wicomico's target allocation, which is based on the governor's capital budget of $280 million. So they reduced Wicomico's allocation from $7.2 million to $6.4 million. The target allocation is intended for planning purposes only and is not a guaranteed minimum or maximum funding. This chart shows the instability of state funding in recent years, with yellow actual allocations, red Wicomico's 10-year average, and then orange the target allocation. Based on future state funding outlook, major capital projects will require county forward funding. To proceed with the Fruitland Primary Project, there will need to be an intergovernmental agreement with the county to cover construction cash flow. County forward-funded cash flow would be reimbursed by the state as funds are available as shown. FY26 priority number 3 is HVAC upgrades to Fruitland Intermediate, and priorities number 4 and number 5 are Wicomico Middle School replacement and site acquisition based on a scoping study, which can also be found on the board's website.
Back up one sec.
Yep.
You're referencing the forward funding, et cetera, et cetera. What is going to satisfy the state? What are they looking for from us? I mean, I don't think our CIP, even the final CIP, ever reflected the commitment we made to Fruitland alone. So what are we going to have to pay attention to in this next budget cycle, both with the CIP and the budget itself? We're going to have to establish these numbers specifically?
So what the IAC requires every year a letter of commitment from local government. That's a thing that occurs every year. Our meeting with them was back in September, I believe. We've already let them know that the county has already provided the $20.5 million allocation for FY 2025. And they're going to be looking for that letter, and I don't believe they're going to be looking for anything more than that particular letter at this point in time.
I'm assuming there'll be another letter, because I'm looking at the commitments that are going to be from 29 to 33. I guess the one commitment on that one bulk fee, then that will be spread out over this multi-year period?
Correct. So since the Board of Education carries the liability for the construction contract, similar to West Salisbury, that's why Kayla mentioned we'd be looking for an intergovernmental agreement similar to what was done for West Salisbury to cover the cash flow piece. Priority number 1 is the remaining allocation of the local amount for the project, with the forward funding being the prioritized number 2 request. Okay. We won't know what the initial round of recommendations are from the IAC until I believe it's now the end of December. So we would begin discussions in the early new year to determine what we think that amount would be to cover the cash flow. Then we'll know what the IAC is looking at for an initial FY26 allocation. They provided $1 million last year. And that's contingent upon the overall state budget for school construction. If it's at a minimum $280 million, that's what the target allocation Kayla was referring to, which is 6.4.
Yes, 6.4.
If the pot of money is bigger than that, typically what they do is they have certain jurisdictions, what they say, in queue for additional funds. They have indicated that Fruitland Primary, if the amount of money went above the $280 million, we would receive a larger allocation. We just don't know what that's going to be at this point in time.
There is early indications that it could be more than the $280 million, just based on the state's financial outlook. So there was an article, potentially 313. It's yet to be determined.
Sweet, yeah. Okay.
So just to recap, priority number 3 is Fruitland Intermediate HVAC upgrade, and then priorities number 4 and number 5 are Wicomico Middle School replacement and site acquisition based on the scoping study. We also included a priority number 6 and number 7 in the CIP. It's HVAC upgrades to Westside Intermediate and Salisbury Middle School. Please note that there are several other projects. We actually submitted a top 15 to the county, but we have just highlighted the top 7 for this presentation purpose. Here's some highlights of some last year projects completed or currently underway from the FY25 Capital Improvement Plan. It includes Mardella Middle School High School Phase 3, Parkside High School Roof Phase 1, Glen Avenue Elementary School ADA restrooms, Glen Avenue Elementary School parking improvements, Y-High's fire alarm upgrade Phase 1, and Y-High's roof Phase 2. As Liesl mentioned, this document was approved by the board September 10th. It was submitted to the county September 13th, the state October 4th, and then presented to you today in this county council work session. So thank you for your time.
Sure.
The only other piece we were going to mention was, if it hasn't already been mentioned with the council, is that Wicomico County Public Schools received the highest maintenance effective rating across the entire state of Maryland. I mean,
Yes.
Dr. Rager, number 1.
Yeah, we're typically in the top 3 to 5 around the state for the annual maintenance inspections that are conducted by that same IAC that provides the state funding for construction. They come around for Wicomico County, inspect 3 schools a year. The number of schools varies by county size. This year, we were number 1 in the state, and we were one of only 2 jurisdictions that had no deficiencies noted on the inspection. So we were really proud of that. We
really good.
work hard to take care of our schools. We work hard to build great new schools when we have that opportunity. And of those 24 in our portfolio, we're working hard every day to maintain them.
It's hard to do.
Yeah, so could you elaborate a little bit more on the Wicomico Middle replacement site acquisition? I think that's going to probably stir a lot of conversation with the citizens due to the fact that it's probably even more than redistricting is what John Palmer mentioned this morning. I don't know which is going to raise the curiosity more, but due to the fact that it has some historic value and stuff like that. So where were you headed with that?
I'll start, and then we can certainly elaborate from there. But you're right, it is a historical site, and when we were looking at the piece of what we were going to do with that school, would it be renovated, would we try to build on site, it was very clear that we would need to acquire a new site, build a new school. That Y Middle School is set to be, the plan is to repurpose that school. We have a number of programs throughout this county that are in portables that are attached to schools, whether it's Evening High School, whether it's our Newcomer Center for our English language learners, whether it's our alternative school or choices school. We also have a number of special ed programs. And there are some ideas about, hey, can we look at something like that to expand CTE when we know that it's challenging to do something like that in another way. So I think utilizing Y Middle for multiple purposes like that in the future would be very beneficial for not only the school system but for the county as well.
So there's no talk of demolishing it?
No, absolutely not.
Demolishing it?
No.
Sorry.
No, we would.
That probably clears a lot of things up.
The only thing I'd add, because we're going to go into other areas, but before we do, I would like to mention also, because we're talking about capital expenses and things like that, I've had the good fortune of being able to be on the school building commission. I wanted to kind of be on there quite some time ago, but never could. I think Joe spent years on that, but had the opportunity to do it over this last year. And I say the one takeaway I have from having like a front row seat is I'm absolutely pleasantly surprised as to how much the School Building Commission and the Board of Education goes in trying to save Wicomico County money at every single aspect of the job. I mean, every time I go to the meeting, there's 2 or 3 different items that you are trying to advocate for in order to try to make these schools as cost-effective as possible. So you do great work, and I really wanted to mention that publicly so you realized it. So it's not easy.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Sure.
So I think from Lisa and Kayla's presentation, good news as we move forward with Fruitland primaries, it looks like some of that cost has shifted towards the state, so that'll be very helpful for the county. The challenges associated with that is that we're looking at a very consistent allocation from the state, which will require the county to forward fund and then get reimbursed over a period of time from that replacement school. So moving forward, that's just something to keep in mind, and we'll continue to keep you updated on that.
Good.
Also wanted to make sure that I introduced that we do have one board member here, I believe. Mr. Palmer is in the audience, and we have our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Rick Briggs, our Supervisor of Community Schools, Tara Obarski, and our Comptroller, Jesse Reed, with us today. For this next part of the agenda, it looks like we're going to turn things over to our Assistant Superintendent for Student and Family Services, Mrs. Kim Miles.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good to see everyone. Well, we had quite a few items on the agenda that I think I've got some numbers associated with to share with you, so we'll jump right in. The request for information about English language learner students and enrollment. First aha moment is now the term is multilingual. So the state just wanted us to keep moving along, so we have a new term. They're still English language learners, and we'll integrate the terms as well. I do want to back up for a second and let you know that as of yesterday morning, we had 15,652 students enrolled. That was up 12 students from Friday, so the number is constantly moving. I'm giving you live data, as they say.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and that'll come into play in just a moment. So, as of Friday afternoon, we had 2,260 multilingual students speaking languages across a variety of 29 separate languages, some more prevalent than others. Haitian Creole and Spanish are those languages that are most populous within our multilingual students. So go back to that 2,260. About this same time last year, we had 1,507. That is an increase of 753 students. 49, I didn't want to over-exaggerate, so it's 49.9%. I didn't want to come in and say it's 50% increase. I want to be very realistic, so it's 49.9% increase over last year. And these are students that are being served and supported in every single one of our schools and programs. There are focus areas such as the Newcomer Center for our high school students and that integration, but even students working through the Newcomer Center are in their neighborhood schools for part of the day. So we're very fortunate across our system to have the opportunity to serve, and with that great fortune comes the need for additional staff to assist with that, because that number is increasing literally daily. The next item on the agenda, I'm just going to keep rolling unless you ask me to stop.
With the learners, with technology the way it is now, are we going to get to the point of when the teacher speaks, let's say the teacher is speaking English, will there actually be interpreting devices that will be able to supply the students one-on-one, so that, just no different than in the United Nations, when the speaker speaks, they all have their own language? Will we ever get that far?
I don't know if that's a direction that we would go on a large scale, because the intent is to help the multilingual students include English among their multiple languages. So we want to immerse them in that, we want to support them, and obviously we want to respectfully acknowledge their native language as well. So we do have translation opportunities, but as far as that type of device, I'm not quite sure about that.
So the issue is staff, and that's it.
And staffing.
Trying to fund staff to address the 29 different languages that you said. Yeah, I mean, it's insurmountable, obviously.
So, having seen this recently, instruction, at least at the middle school level, and I know it's going on at the elementary level as well as the high school level. So a picture, there's part of the time that our multilingual learners are probably in the classroom with other students that may speak other languages, that may be English-speaking students, and they're receiving instruction. And they're receiving instruction from the classroom teacher. They're getting additional support from a multilingual learner teacher or an ESOL teacher. And then there are other times of the day where that same student may be in support classes where they are getting additional tutoring in English or math, reading, whatever it may be, and that is utilizing, in some cases, technology, where you'll see them with their headphones on, and they're learning at those points in times that same content area in their own language. So it's a blend of things where part of the day they're learning learning to speak English and to understand English. Other parts of the day, they may be learning some of the content in their own language, and in other parts of the day, they may be learning some of the content in the English language, but receiving support at times in their own language. So it's a blend to try to get them to understand, and you can imagine whether they may be enrolling with us, at the age of 15. Going into 9th or 10th grade, and you can understand the challenges of some of the high school subjects as they're trying to learn English, or they may be coming to us in 1st grade. So it's a wide variety, but a lot of different resources are utilized, both from the human capacity as well as from technology.
And that spans across the staff as well. I know on the student family service end of the building, where we get to meet many, many of these families, Obviously, we have some members on our team who are multilingual, but not the majority of us. And so we're often using, on a daily basis, the translation tools so that we can help the families to the greatest extent possible.
Thank you.
I also just want to highlight just one thing that Mrs. Miles mentioned, just so we don't go through it too fast. But please understand that, yes, our English language learner population or our population of multilingual learners has increased by 50% just within the last year. Okay, so we've gone from a little over 1,500 students to now over 2,200 students here that are multilingual learners. And at the same time, our overall enrollment has increased by over 500 students since this time last year. So just to keep in mind that we are doing some enrollment balancing or some redistricting to make sure that we have some of our schools that might be a little underutilized, but not by much. And we have some schools that are well over capacity that we're trying to balance that out among the whole school system. But the fact is that we're talking about Fruitland Primary, and it may not be long before we start talking about a whole new school. We've not built a new school in addition to our normal portfolio since Salisbury Middle School in the late 90s. And our enrollment is increasing rapidly.
Okay.
So we're trying to do the enrollment balancing first to make sure that we're utilizing all of our space as efficiently as possible, but understand that also as we move down the road here, it may not be long before we may need new space in total.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, is the state still have that unfortunate rule where they won't fund for overcapacity?
They make the state, and I'll let Brian correct me or add to it, but the state's going to look to make sure they look at us as a whole county. So they're going to make sure that all of our schools are utilized to the most efficient capacity as possible. So you shouldn't have one school that's well under and one school that's well over.
Talking about funding for new schools.
That's correct.
Yeah.
As they're looking at that funding, that's what they look at.
Yeah.
They may say, well, you don't need a new school in this area because this school that's adjacent to that school is well under capacity and we're not going to provide the funding for it. Does that?
And I think they won't allow you to build a school for more population than you have for that area.
They'll allow it, they just won't fund it.
They won't fund it.
Rely on the county to fund that.
Is that still in place?
Yeah, their funding formulas are based on the state rated capacity of the building and projections that don't go as far out as what we can do. And you know, we know when there's population increases coming and bubbles coming through, and their funding, though, is limited to the extent that going much above that would rely on a greater portion of that funding resting on the county.
So, for instance, the enrollment projections for Fruitland Primary were completed probably last year in preparation for the studies that had to be done and the plans that had to be done for the school to be approved. The actual school won't open, right, until probably 2028. So, you know, obviously that whole range of time and how that enrollment may have changed during that time. Thank you, Mrs. Miles.
Absolutely. Next topic, families in transition. Thank you for using the term on the agenda. Many people would know this as homeless youth and families, but families in transition. We're supporting them in their next steps. And shared residence. I wanted to share this information with you, adding the shared residence, and I'll explain why as we go. Currently, real live time, we have 561 students identified as family in transition youth or homeless. Now keep in mind, to be homeless or identified as fit, you have housing that is not fixed, adequate, and or stable. So it could come from a loss of housing, inadequate housing, natural disaster, domestic violence, economic hardship. So pupil personnel workers and others have worked with a total of 561 students and their families and have identified as such at this point. Then there's shared residence, and you don't often hear as much about that. I know it wasn't specified on the agenda, but there is a correlation. We have 1,450 students who are living in situations of shared residence. Now, that kind of has two sides of a coin, because it could be that a family, I'll give just an example, has moved in with grandparents to help the grandparents. So there are two families living there for the purpose of family support. More often than not, by the documentation that we have, it's situations where families are not able to find and support themselves in affordable housing solely on their own as a family unit. The costs are beyond what they may be able to handle, or the availability doesn't exist. So they are, someone used the term doubling up at a point, but we're seeing 4 and 5 families, if not more, in a single residence as shared residence. So the reason I brought the two of those together under this topic was that results in just over, or actually 12.8% of our student population is identified as either fit or living in shared residence. It doesn't mean that those children are any less capable or any less supported or anything of that nature, but I bring that up to highlight the fact that students finding themselves in those situations and settings often have very specific and perhaps even greater needs, because we have to work with and want to support the student through whatever's happening outside of the school so they can be their best selves within the school. So it's a number. The important thing that I ask is every number I give you today, just remember there's a child's face behind it. It could be a little pumpkin, could be a big pumpkin, but there's a child's face behind it. So I wanted to share that. The next topic on the agenda was about school safety and SROs and campus patrols. Fortunately, something we talked about several months ago, our campus security managers, we have this in place. We are developing and supporting campus security teams across our schools. Our SRO program is strong, and we want it to continue to get stronger. We want to bring more SROs in. We currently have 10, including the sergeant, as well as 2 who are specific to our elementary. So they're not; those 2 are not part of the original 10. Those are in addition. So we're able to provide support and daily monitoring specific in person to the elementaries. Let's go back to that campus security team. It has multiple members, specifically at our high schools. Our high schools have a team comprised of the SRO, full responsibility for all legal aspects, law enforcement, things of that nature. A campus security manager. This is a new position, and we have 4 of these campus security managers who are really working collaboratively with the SRO, but as much, if not more, with school administration on the multitude of safety aspects within a school. Safety drills, safety preparedness, safety reviews, all of the aspects of that, they're in that support. And then we have our campus patrols that we have had for several years. These are boots on the ground, feet in the hallway people, along with the managers in those schools who are continuously monitoring and supporting student movement and student activity within the school. It's important to note that we have the campus patrols in middle and high schools. The campus security managers are in high schools, and we have plans to continue to grow those teams, also with continuous support to our elementary schools. As our superintendent has made very clear, safety is our priority, because if we have people in buildings feeling safe and supported, we can bring all of the instructional highlights that are available. So much appreciation for your ongoing support in those areas as well. It is so important. And then we have a program that started a few years ago and has grown, literally doubled overnight in the summer. We have 23 community schools out of 24 in Wicomico County. And having had the opportunity to work with those schools from the introduction of that program and support in Wicomico County, I must say that I am super excited to be able to introduce next Tara Obarski, who now oversees the entire 23-school cadre of programs and all that's happening. So I think it's really important, and I'm very grateful that you wanted to have some more information on that.
As Mrs. Obarski's getting ready to start, were there any questions about campus security?
The school safety manager, is that a prior law enforcement?
It was not a requirement. Among those 4 persons, some do have prior law enforcement experience, and some do not.
What are the requirements?
We had a job posting that had degree requirements and certain life skill and professional experiences that each of the 4 that were hired met the requirements for. We actually had a large pool of candidates with interest and expertise in those areas.
Any other questions?
That's it.
Appreciate it. I just wanted to make sure, I know there were 5 SRO positions, right, that the council provided us with funding for the year before last. So at this point, we've filled 2 of those. So we have 2 additional SROs now in our school system, which is 12, 10 in the secondary level, and now 2 that are patrolling the elementary schools. And then, as Mrs. Miles said, we're setting up these security teams that are comprised in our secondary schools of SRO, campus security manager, and campus patrol, and the administrative teams that are now all working together. And we'll continue to do that, hopefully, as we hire, as the Sheriff's Department provides more school resource officers, and we're able to also expand our campus patrol staff. So it's working out very well. Thank you. Ms. Obarski? Take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me some time on the agenda today, and thank you, Dr. Stauffer, for supporting that as well. I've done this at the City Council session as well, and I think it's really important to bring outreach and awareness about the community school strategy and what we're being charged with in the blueprint, especially to our district and government leaders such as yourself. So I appreciate you taking some time to hear my spiel, and any questions that you might have, there'll be some time for that as well. So this illustration, I think, is really powerful. It depicts the thousands of students that we have coming into our buildings every day with this invisible baggage that they carry that we sometimes don't know about. And we're expecting them to sit in a classroom and learn math and science and English, but they're carrying around these other needs, whether it be food insecurities, homelessness, mental health needs, physical health needs, all of those non-academic barriers that we know are really important to address in order for them to be successful academically. And this is really what the community school strategy is all about. So I'm going to talk to you kind of about what the definition is, what we're charged with through the blueprint, and how we've grown in the last couple of years. So a community school is really a hub that brings together an integrated service approach. So academic supports, social service supports, mental health, physical health supports, everything that a student needs to be successful and thriving. It is not a program, it is a strategy, so it's really important to understand that it's not just a one and done type of program, but it's a strategy that includes a set of partnerships, strategic partnerships with community resources that really takes that integrated approach on all of the things a child needs, not just academics, not just health, but social service, youth development, and community engagement. And really with the ongoing goal of improved student outcomes, but also stronger families and healthier communities. So it's really a very holistic approach, widespread, not just within the 4 walls of the school. And as you know, the blueprint legislation is what we're working under, and this falls under Pillar 4 of the blueprint, which is more resources for student success. There's a really big, long definition in the legislation, which I'm not going to read that to you, but I would call your attention to the bolded words. I think those are important to understand that this community school strategy is strategic partnerships, it's community involvement, it's shared accountability amongst our community stakeholders as well as our schools and our families. It's collaborative leadership, it's capacity building, it's student-centered, and it's really about those engaging practices and wraparound services that students need to thrive. So here are the kind of key ideas to keep in mind. This is an assets-based approach, so we're really looking at within each school, community school, what are the assets that that school already has to provide to students and families? What is the surrounding community assets? What are those assets that we might have to tap into and partner with? And what assets does the family bring to the table? And really pulling those together collectively to basically have the biggest bang for our buck with those students. It's also partnership-based, as I said. It's holistic in its focus, as I also said, and it's that integrated supports of academic, social, and health services. So community schools are not a new concept in the United States. Really, they started back in the early 1990s, more so up north, like in New York and so forth. We've had them around for about 5 years here in Wicomico County. Our first community schools were established in 2019, 2020. And really, they're evolving over time. What they used to be was we'd have this event at the school, and these resources would come. They'd set up their little vendor table, and here's some flyers, right? Kind of a one and done. This is more about long-term strategy, strategic partnerships where these resources are really connecting with the school and with families to provide services and supports. And it's really about whole school transformation, strengthening families, and strengthening communities overall. And obviously, as we evolve, our enduring goals are removing those barriers to learning, improving student outcomes, supporting our families and communities. So here's a map of fiscal year 24 community schools. You can see that there were 454 in the state, only a couple of LEAs that did not have any, and we had 10. That was last year. And just to give you a little background, community schools are identified through the concentration of poverty grant, and they look at a 3-year average of free and reduced meal percentages at that school. And there's a threshold in the formula. So back in 2020, the threshold was 80%. So we only had a few schools identified at that time. Each year, the threshold is decreased by 5%. So last year, we're looking at schools that were identified as community schools with a free and reduced meal rate of 60% or higher. We had 10 schools that fell into that category. This year, in fiscal year 25, we have 23 schools, as Mrs. Miles mentioned, 621 across the state, with every LEA having them except for Calvert. And the threshold is at 55% this year. So that means that 23 of our 24 schools, 3-year average of free and reduced meal rate, which they call the poverty rate, is at least 55% or higher. That's how we're identified, through the concentration of poverty grant. We get funding for that to hire a community school coordinator to carry out the work that we are charged with through the blueprint. So you can see the growth of the community school since FY20, how much it has grown. So it definitely, that threshold decreasing has definitely identified more community schools across the state. So our community school coordinators are doing work, coordinating work, engaging with partners in the community, and trying to provide supports and services to families under 4 pillars. So the work they're doing either falls under expanded and enriched learning opportunities, so that's internships for our secondary students, our apprenticeships, it's student service learning types of projects, it's after-school programming, it's summer programming, and even weekend programming to provide those academic and individualized supports. It's integrated student supports. This is that part about the non-academic barriers where we're talking about mental health services and supports, more physical supports, dental and vision screenings, all of those things that students need to thrive, the basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs as well. The third pillar is active family and community engagement. This is really about partnerships and relationships, but also about parent education. A lot of the workshops that we try to offer families are in response to what they're asking for. It might be they need to understand how to deal with social media with their child. They might need to know how to set up routines at home, things that we might take for granted and think that families might already know how to do, but they actually enjoy and are grateful for these educational opportunities. And the fourth pillar is collaborative leadership, and that's kind of what we're here for right now. This is collaborative leadership about all voices at the table, building that culture of trust, but a shared accountability that we all have a role to play in the education and success of our students. We can't do it all in the 4 walls of a school. So these are wraparound services in the Maryland's blueprint, just so you have an understanding of what their community schools are being charged with working towards to make sure we're providing some of these things to our students, or all of these things to our students. I'm not going to read them to you, but you can just see that they fall into those categories of whether it be engagement, mental health, physical health, getting to school, to and from school safely, enrichment experiences, improving attendance of students and so on.
So if we can stop there just for a brief moment, I know this ties in with State of the Schools that I know a few of you were able to attend last year and maybe have seen other presentations that I've done over the summer. But the idea that state funding has increased towards school systems like Wicomico County is very real. We do get a higher amount of state funding than we did a number of years ago under the blueprint legislation. But this slide is a really good example of the scope of responsibility that school systems have like Wicomico now, where our scope of responsibility at one point, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, was here, which was more in the traditional education setting that some of you think of, when you were in school and the responsibility that teachers and administrators and schools had back then. But under Blueprint, that funding, that additional funding, is not just additional funding to be able to run the school system that we've always done or to account for inflation or any of those things. It's to really expand the scope of services that public schools provide now. And all of these things that 23 of our 24 schools are required to provide for our students and our families, whether it's parent education, vision and dental screening services, all of those different things. Our scope has really widened over the course of the last few years, and that's what Blueprint legislation is designed to do, and that's what this community school program or initiative, I should say, strategy is designed to do. So I just wanted to take a moment to highlight that.
It's quite a charge that our schools have, and minimal funding through the COP grant for sure, and we are charged with doing quite a bit, as you can see. So I'll just end with just understanding the role of the community school coordinator at each of these 23 schools. They have to work on the same thing I'm doing right now, community outreach and awareness, but making sure that their school, families and staff and surrounding community understands this strategy and what it means and what the benefit is to the families in the community. But they also have to lead the completion of an assets and needs assessment in the first year so that they can really gauge what are the specific needs of that community school, and then developing an implementation plan to meet those needs in the second year. They're promoting and coordinating those efforts under the 4 pillars that I just described to you. They're trying to establish new community partnerships or enhance existing ones to make sure that we can make those connections and meet the needs of our families. And then, as I said, that implementation plan to meet the results of the needs assessment in year 2. So they have quite a lot on their plate as well. And I don't think I have to tell you all this, but schools and communities are stronger together. So I appreciate your support. I appreciate you listening to the strategy. I'm open to any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny, we've heard about it for so long, and it's being implemented. I mean, this is something I think I remember a conversation 10 years ago about having community schools and the importance of that. So, any questions from anybody? Jeff?
I got with regards to the English language learning, multilingual students, we know the challenges on staffing or lack thereof. Is that right?
Correct.
What about the student population? How is that issue affecting the overall student population?
I think I would start by saying our students are amazing. We know there are challenges at any point in time, but the experiences that a multilingual student is bringing into a classroom with students who may have heard no other language other than English, and how they learn from one another, there's a lot of powerful and positive integration and sharing going on. I'm not trying to paint a Pollyanna. Obviously, there can be challenges, but I think the experience is making all of the students involved stronger.
I think the challenges probably are as much or more focused on just the increase in enrollment in general.
The numbers.
The numbers.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that all of the challenges are linked to multilingual learners. It's certainly not. As Mrs. Miles said, it does a lot to enrich the culture of our schools. But it's just in general, whether they're multilingual learners, English speakers, whatever it may be, our enrollment has increased significantly. Our class sizes in our schools are increasing significantly. So that is really where the challenge is. When you have schools like Prince Street or Beaver Run or Northwestern that have 29 students in every single kindergarten class, it's a challenge to have 29 5-year-olds in a classroom all day long with a teacher and an assistant. That creates a lot of challenges, and those types of challenges are growing at a significant rate all across our school system. So that's where the challenge is.
Hasn't the student population been somewhat the same for 10 so years, and all of a sudden now we see those numbers
correct
going up, and that's
correct.
That's the problem.
Yes.
Or it's the challenge. It's not a
It's
problem.
the challenge. It's challenge. It
Yeah.
takes the resources to come with that challenge, right? Like I was speaking about, we obviously need more space, more teachers at a rapid rate.
Thank you.
Thank you. That
very much.
concludes our agenda.
Appreciate it.
We appreciate your
Always-
time.
yeah.
Thank you all very much.
You too. Take care. Thank you. Final item we have on the agenda are interviews with nominees for Supervisor of Assessments. We'll begin with Catherine Hovance, I guess. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Good afternoon. What we thought we'd want to meet everyone. The request was made, that we were going to be sending the names up, and one of the council members says, well, we don't even know who these names are, or we need to have a face with that name, so we at least thought we'd to talk to you, very informal, just to get a feel for, what you're about and, what your goals might be. So, like I said, it's very informal, and you can, if you'd like to, we'd give you the floor if you'd like to make a comment, sure.
Sure. Again, my name is Catherine Hovance. I'm currently the acting supervisor of the assessment office for Wicomico County. A little background from my career. Been with the department about 17 years. Started out in Worcester County as an assessor, assessing properties, inspecting properties. In about 2016, I was promoted to assessor supervisor, overseeing a group of about 5 assessors there. In 2018, I was promoted to the assistant supervisor for Wicomico County. And then in July of this year, I was promoted to the acting supervisor. I graduated from Salisbury University with a degree in environmental planning. Currently, I'm the president of the Maryland Association of Assessing Officers. Basically, it's a conference that organizes a group of appraisers and assessors throughout the state of Maryland for educational purposes, promoting education in that aspect. I worked closely, with the previous supervisor. I know the job duties very well. I'm currently doing those job duties as of now. I have an acting relationship with the local finance office, permit office, with the city as well as the county and the local jurisdictions.
Anybody have any questions they'd like to ask?
No, good.
Okay. How many, now it's becoming, what's the number of staff there is right now?
It's about 10 right now.
10?
Yeah, we have 3 residential commercial assessors, 1 commercial, 1 that's a part-time commercial assessor, and 3 clerical.
And those you're talking about include inspectors as well, is that correct?
Sorry?
Inspectors as well?
Yeah, the assessors
on-site?
are our inspectors.
Assessors, yeah,
assessors,
okay.
Yeah.
What is I know that there's on-site inspections, but there's also a lot of data-driven issues now. And it has that sort of transition, whereas I thought there used to be always on-site inspections. There still may be that, but it seems a lot more of these inspections now are data-driven.
Correct. I mean, due to only having 3 assessors, we are lucky. Not all counties have aerial technology, so we are able to access that. But as far as permits and new construction, when we get permits in, we still physically have to go out and inspect the properties.
The 3-year,
cycle,
assessments.
correct, yeah.
3-year cycle assessments are basically, more data-driven based on sales and
Correct, yeah.
comps and all that?
A third of the county gets reassessed every 3 years, so we'll look at market data at that time on top of permits we have for those properties. That will incorporate the overall assessed value for that property.
Anybody else? No?
Your resume is quite impressive.
Thank you.
You got a lot of experience. What experience would you use to help you if you get this new position?
I feel like I've been in the active role since July, so I'm very familiar with what the duties and responsibilities are. I'm continuing to have to, if there are questions, I have the ability to have that resource of having the relationship with the finance office, as well as local jurisdictions.
Thank you very much. Good luck. Next, we have Chelsea Hoag. Ms. Hoag, how are you?
Good afternoon.
Afternoon. Thanks for being here. I apologize to everybody for having to wait so long. If anybody gave you a heads up on how this operation works sometimes, they'll tell you you're going to have to sit and wait sometimes, unfortunately. But thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, we'll give you the floor.
Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Chelsea Hoag, and I'm the Director of Operations at Davis Strategic Development. I've been with that company for 8 years. We have a wide variety of properties in Wicomico, Wilmington, Delaware, Wicomico, Purchasing, the general area. We have property management, and we work with like the county and the different landlords and investors in the general area with all the properties that we currently have. I've been with the company for 8 years. I started as an executive assistant with Mr. Davis. It was just me and him, and now we have 25 employees between construction, admin, development, and individual real estate agents in the commercial side and the residential side.
You're with the Davis Group. You're busy.
I am busy.
You're very busy, no doubt about it. Any questions from anybody here? Joe, have anything you want to ask? No. I guess I would just say, from your previous experience with this, how do you think that would spill over into what you're be responsible for now?
A lot of my responsibilities is new acquisitions, so taking consideration what approach we are to what the value of that property is. So like if it's a cost assessment or if it's a new construction, if it's a residential property, a development that we're actually doing, just doing the cost assessment to figure out how much that individual property, if we were selling it or buying it or what have you, just finding out that actual rate of return.
Anything else you want to add? Okay. All right. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we have Kimberly Klug? Sean Klug. Okay, yeah. Sean. Obviously, you go by Sean.
Yes.
Yeah. How are you?
Fine, how are you?
Good.
You too.
If you don't mind just giving us an overview of your experience and your...
Okay. Do you have a copy of my resume?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay. All right, great. My name is Sean Klug, Kimberly Sean Klug, and I'm currently the Assistant Supervisor for Worcester County. I have been with the department for over 25 years. I live in Salisbury and have lived there for over 35 years. I currently do... I don't have the supervisor position, but I do all the duties of the supervisor position in Worcester County and have done them for many, many years. I've got my master's degree from Salisbury University in education and my bachelor's in psychology. So basically, I have been doing this job for many years, and there's some differences in Worcester and Wicomico. I've been in Worcester my whole career, and Wicomico is a little different, but everything works the same. And I'm very familiar with Wicomico County. I'm even familiar with most of the people that work in the Wicomico County office. Some of them I hired and trained.
Oh, right. I mean, that's an interesting point. What small nuances might you say are different between what you're doing in Worcester and Wicomico?
Worcester has $22 billion tax base. I think Wicomico has about a $9 billion tax base. So there's less accounts in Wicomico than there is in Worcester. Worcester has a I don't know if you all are familiar, the homestead credit where it has to be your primary residence in
Right.
order for you to get that. Worcester is more transient in that it's a lot of second homes and summer homes. So the little nuances, that's a big deal in Worcester. I don't know if it's as big a deal in Wicomico, but I understand that completely and help people all throughout the state when they call and have questions. Also, I guess the same for Worcester and Wicomico is there's a lot of agriculture, and I handle all the agricultural transfers, and I also handle the plats. I handle pretty much every detail of everything that goes on in the office.
From anybody? Nope. Yep, we're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Diane Lyons. There you are. Good afternoon. How are you?
So, I'm Diane Jump Lyons. I have been with the department 6 years, so I'm a little newer than Sean and Catherine. But I started my career in aerospace procurement. I worked for Harvard Custom Manufacturing. I'm sure some of you are aware of Harvard Custom and what we were. And I worked my way up there from clerical into management and enjoyed all 20 years I was there. I was there, I think, 5 months short of 20 years. So
Is Harvard Custom behind the Civic Center?
it was beside the Civic Center,
Is it
yes.
Ed Urban?
Yes, Ed Urban.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
Ed Urban, Tony Rodriguez,
Yes, Tony.
Bill Caputo.
Okay.
Yes, yes. So they closed doors and I had to pivot. And so I went into, basically became a loan originator for a company, a local company, and worked there for 2 years. During that time, I worked with Christine Duma, who is now an area supervisor and was the Wicomico County supervisor of assessments, and worked with her a little bit on a couple different deals I was trying to close. And she advised me that there was a position opening up with SDAT. And so I applied and was hired, became an assessor, and have been an assessor for 6 years. During that time, I've also worked with the Maryland Association of Assessing Officers, and I hold the position of vice president of that organization. And in this year, I received the, what do they call it? The Selfless Service Award for that organization for going above and beyond what the previous president of that organization thought that most people did. So with that said, I'm open to questions.
We have that award for Jeff Merritt over here, so going above and beyond. Well, I applaud you. I mean, you're switching gears like that and finding something else that you like to do as well is very good, and then applying for this role as well. That's excellent.
I do enjoy it.
Yeah.
I do enjoy it a lot.
Do you do right now in assessment? Are you mostly doing commercial or are you doing residential?
I'm doing residential.
Okay. How would you address the commercial end of it as a supervisor? I guess.
As a supervisor, you know, we have a great commercial staff, and I would certainly work with them to learn as much as I could. And Pam, who is the main, I won't say the main, but she's the
Pam's good.
full-time residential
She's good, yeah.
assessor. Yeah, I'm sure you've met Pam. I would take as much information as I could from her and certainly learn, you know, I've certainly read business analytics before because of my past procurement job.
Right.
So I'm familiar in that respect, and I can learn.
Yeah. Management is always about collaboration, period.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you know, beyond that, I've certainly had to give people bad news, including probably yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that my career has been a focus of working with people, giving them the good and the bad and the ugly.
Right.
And sometimes that's one of the bigger commercial challenges that you face, is you come across people who just don't want to hear the bad news.
Right. Right.
You know, certainly we do on residential, but it's a little different with commercial.
Sure. Anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm good.
Well, we are keeping
Thank
it
you.
simple, so thank you very
Yeah,
much.
please.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We have Jessica Turner.
She was unable to show up.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, very good. Again, thank you for taking the time for this exercise. Again, we just wanted to know who you were before you went on.
My fault. I was the one that asked.
On ahead.
They were sending these names up and don't know who these folks are.
Yeah, so best of luck to you, and we hope we'll certainly meet up with one of you again in the very near future. So, and good luck, very much so. Thank you very much. With that being said, gentlemen, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Favor?